Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Joint Council and Burbank Unified School District meeting, Board of Education meeting of Monday, October 13th, 2014. We were going to have the flag salute, so if you'd all please rise, I'm going to invite our guest, Mr. Mike Gallo, to lead us in the pledge.
Thank you. Please place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Madam City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Brick.
Here.
Vice Mayor Frutos.
Here.
Councilmember Ghiberletti.
Here.
Councilmember Talamantes.
Here.
Mayor Gordon.
Here.
Member Kemp.
Here.
Member Bunch.
Here.
Clerk Applebaum.
Here.
Vice President Tabbitt.
Here.
And President Reynolds.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who may be looking at your agenda, just a little bit of housekeeping. The first item tonight is listed as public comment because normally that's the way we proceed. We have public comment before the council hears testimony and does its action. However, we have a special presentation tonight, and we on the council and members of the Board of Education are particularly interested in hearing feedback from the community on their ideas and input related to the topic we're going to be hearing about. So everyone will be entitled to a 5-minute period to address, up to 5-minute period to address the council and school board members. However, we're suggesting that that be placed, and we will have a time after the presentations to present. But if for any reason somebody is unable to stay or wishes to comment on the front end, we will accommodate that request. And are there any objections to that proceedings here on the council and board member? Are we okay with that? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council prior to hearing the presentation this evening? Just simply indicate, raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. If you do wish to address the council and board joint meeting, please fill out a card. I'm not sure, the yellow cards? Yellow cards, our city clerk is sitting in front, and you can either get them in the front coming in or at her desk, and just put your name so we'll be able to call your name, and then we'll proceed from there. Okay. So tonight, this meeting is going to address the topic of career technical education workforce development. We have a number of people who are going to be commenting, and we have two special guests who've come to address us. But for the beginning, I'd like to introduce Superintendent of our Burbank Unified School District, Dr. Jan Britz. Jan?
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our guests who will tell us a little bit about the program that we've all been waiting for. And the first person I would like to introduce is Michael Gallo, who is the board president of the San Bernardino City Unified School District. He is also the co-founder and operator of Technical Employment Training Incorporated, a nonprofit partnership of education and industry which seeks to prepare and place a skilled workforce for the manufacturing sector. He is the founder and CEO of Kelly Space and Technology Incorporated and former Air Force Special Operations Officer, governor's appointee to the State Workforce Investment Board. So he is a man of many talents and certainly a man of a dream come true. And I would also like to introduce Dr. Bill Clark, who is the co-founder of Technical Employment Training. And Dr. Bill Clark began his professional career as a trainer in General Dynamics. At that same time, he became a part-time teacher with Fontana Unified School District. Once, in 1988, once he retired from General Dynamics, he then began a teaching position as the department head of San Bernardino Valley College Machine Trades Department. During his tenure as an educator, he attained his doctorate degree in educational management from the University of La Verne. In May 2010, Dr. Clark retired from public education to pursue a dream of developing a technical school based on many models he has seen over his lifetime in education. He's now the president of operations and training at the Technical Employment Training Incorporated. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce these two gentlemen.
And before we do that, with just a little housekeeping, so that we do not become the PowerPoint screen, we are going to join the members of the audience so that we may listen to this presentation as well and actually see the PowerPoint. So council and board, we're going to move down to the audience.
We're just going to take a moment to step down, and then we'll resume and continue the meeting from here after the presentation. So at this point, I have the pleasure and honor to introduce the first speaker, Mr. Mike Gallo. Mike.
Thank you, David. And thank you for welcoming me to your great city. I did get a chance to have Mark escort me through today, and we got a tour around the city. It was absolutely fabulous. It's been a while since I've been here. I used to do business with Lockheed and in a number of the space games. In fact, I run a company called Kelly Space and Technology, and I'll just jump to my first chart here, and assuming it's actually going to do that. I think, let's see. And I'm actually president of a company called Kelly Space and Technology. I founded the company 23 years ago, and came from United States Air Force and then ballistic missiles technology, and we've been involved in reusable launch vehicle development for a long time, and got a chance to work with Lockheed Skunk Works while I worked for the administrator of NASA for a number of years, and do some things on the former was called YF-12, and some of you may remember that as the SR-71 that was actually developed right here at Lockheed and the Skunk Works, 27 months from conception to deployment of that aircraft. Tried doing that today. You couldn't get through the environmental certifications and things, but we've started a number of things at Kelly Space and Technology, but it became evident that if I was ever going to build a qualified, quality, reusable launch vehicle technology development company, a qualified, skilled, and competent workforce was essential. And so we started focusing on how am I going to build the rocket scientists of the future? Where am I going to get the talent? Where am I going to get the skills and abilities, certifications, credentials necessary to actually lead leading edge development like was initiated right here back in Lockheed Skunk Works decades ago? You know, how do we build that capability and become great again, not only in manufacturing, but in intellectual property development, innovation, implementation of innovation, and deployment of these great patented intellectual property technologies, which really is the driver, when you think about it, of economic development in a region and really for our nation. That's one thing our country was really great at, and that's developing and deploying new technologies. And if you don't have a qualified workforce and a skilled workforce and an entrepreneurial thinking and studies, the likelihood we're going to regain and, quite frankly, keep our world leadership role in intellectual property development, which gives you factors of rate of return on investment rather than just incremental wage gains and things like that. So really, it drives the economy. It's what drives our world leadership. And so my focus on reusable launch vehicle technologies and just technology in general was critical. And when you look at some of these, and I say notable facts, but they're really alarming facts, when you see 30% of our students drop out of high school, you see reading at grade level by fourth grade. If you're not doing that, you never catch up. You see, and there's a corollary to that, if you're not performing at math by fifth grade level, end of fifth grade level, you never catch up. Because, you know, when you think about it, you learn to read to learn. And if you haven't learned to read well, the likelihood you're going to be learning in the future with more and more intensity and comprehension, it's just not going to get you there. So, with economic development, and I'm thinking, my original intent for becoming involved in this was to try to develop a competent workforce and gainfully employ these people to actually move an agenda, be the best at deployment of access to space and opening up a whole new world and actually a whole new universe of development. And you don't have to think about that very long to say competent, qualified workforce is what's going to get you there. You don't have to think about that very long to say our public education system is absolutely critical that we figure out how to inspire and engage our students early on in the onset of their public education experience and work that. And that's why you're going to see kind of a blend of education, workforce development, and economic development all blended in. If you had three concentric circles, it'd be that midpoint, that kind of concentricity that we're looking at to really focus on all of these. And you can't talk about one without the other. They're so inextricably linked and integrated that it's all one discussion, really. So we'll try to have this story weave through and actually make some sense to you. When you look at our science and math literacy scores, 8th among the development countries, it's absolutely incredible. You start looking at, let's see if we get the next one, the labor market. And when I went to high school in 1973, that's about when I was in, 72% of the jobs required a high school education or less. You could get a great job coming out of high school. You look at where we're going today, and you're just plain not seeing that. You look at today, and it's basically the opposite. 63% of all jobs require some sort of post-secondary education, or will by 2018. And when you couple that with how many people will actually be leaving the workforce, some people maybe a little bit older than I am. Maybe, David, you're probably in that category. Sorry. But you look at just in manufacturing alone, which again drives an economy in a nation, learning to make things and selling things that nobody else is doing is another driver of the economy, not just the innovation and invention, but the actual manufacture of those elements as well. And when you look at most of the manufacturers today, this number has actually gone up. They report they simply cannot find qualified workers, especially in light of the technological literacy demands where you see this industry actually migrating to. The days of the old dirty machine shop that looks like an auto shop in the garage are over. I mean, we're doing things like 3D printing and computer-driven, numerically controlled, advanced manufacturing technologies that require, that's the whole point of requiring that post-secondary education. The technological literacy requirements are absolutely incredible. And so when you see this, look at the lifetime earnings gaps and between those with a high school education and those with a college degree, you're hanging around $1 million differential. And then when you look at bachelor's degrees, the earnings of folks with bachelor's degrees, 65% higher than those of high school graduates, and you see the numbers there. And then you even look at associate's degrees, 73% more of those than completed high school. And these trends, again, with the technological literacy demands of the future is only going to intensify. And the message is clear. If you are not participating in lifelong education, and definitely beyond high school, I mean, which really is zero in my mind from a workforce preparation standpoint. And I'm not minimizing the value of a high school diploma, but this is not going to prepare you for success, especially economic success in a workforce. It's just not, and let alone to be leading things that are actually going to generate economic prosperity for yourselves, your communities, and your family, quite frankly. And That's why I say this is truly the passport to the American dream, is higher education and skill acquisition. And, you know, by higher education, I'm not talking about only 4-year degrees. I'm talking about 4-year degrees, sure, and beyond. But I'm really talking about things like apprenticeship programs, things like technical training, things that develop and provide you with certifications and credentials and skills and abilities necessary to compete for these higher technology programs and demands, industry demands, and it runs the whole gamut. It's not just the things that require an engineering, like the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics curriculums. In fact, we've kind of modified the word STEM and brought in STEAM, many of you have heard, to add the arts as a component on this, because there is a whole peripheral and a whole other industry sectors that are hugely in demand and that couple and are actually blended with the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields, that we find it compelling and actually essential to include the arts as part of this. And the arts are all over the gamut, not only from digital and media arts and the more intellectual property elements like that, but the blending of that with actual designs and developments and things, to including even the performing arts, which is a huge demand industry sector in our region anyway. And so it's important that we look at this and that we consider the arts as an important element of this as well. And when you look at, we started evaluating, well, look, why aren't our kids seem like they're engaged? Why aren't they? Is it, in many of our programs, you've seen us dropping out career technical education and vocational education programs kind of went by the wayside and shutting down many machine trades programs and things and auto shops because they were expensive to operate. And quite frankly, with No Child Left Behind, we wanted to focus on academic achievement and try to push everyone towards college, even though we know they're not going to go there, but we wanted to at least provide that opportunity for folks. But we've recognized that, look, when you talk to students and you start seeing the results, and you see this chart here that basically explains, was a study done by Harvard College of Education, Graduate School of Education, a couple of years ago, called the Pathway to Prosperity Report. And it's really an insightful report. And it asks students why, just why. What's the reason you're not engaged? Why are you dropping out of high school? Don't you know this is really going to set the course of your future in life? And without question, the bottom line is we're not tangibly inspiring them and engaging them in things that they find of interest. So it's just the relevancy key. The quote was, many can't see a clear, transparent connection between their program of studies and tangible opportunities in the labor market. They couldn't see how this boring math and science equations are related to something that they might actually gainfully employ one day. And I just think about my own pathway. I went to military academy. High school was a piece of cake to me, but I had a rude awakening in college. I almost dropped out of engineering school, and I'm a rocket scientist today developing things. But I'll tell you the reason why. And of course, I went to Tufts, Boston University, and Harvard University as well. I didn't graduate from any one of those three. I had to make up for summer school courses I failed in military academy, and that's why I went to that last three. But it was because of the applied learning pieces. I saw just these mathematical formulas and equations that I hated. I actually hated math until my junior year in college, where I actually saw that it meant something. It happened to be like differential equations was a load along a bridge span and what the angle of deflection was, and I could see it. It could visualize it, and it made sense to me. And suddenly these boring equations related to something that I was actually interested in, and I got excited about school again, and I aced these courses, and mathematics seemed like a piece of cake, once you saw the point and meaning of it. And so I'm wondering, why in the world do we wait till a junior year in college for a kid to actually experience something that they find of interest and that excites them? It's crazy. You would never do this. So part of the initiative that we're going to be talking to you about today is, how we embed these kinds of motivational, applied link learning, project-based, exciting, inspirational learning models within their academic course of studies to get them realizing early on, this is an area of interest and this is where I want to go. And not that you're asking a fifth grader to make up their mind what career pathway they want to do, but you're exposing them to various career pathways. You're exposing them to things that they might find of interest. And like, I wanted to be an astronaut when I grew up. You know, that's the era I grew up in. And, you know, I'm not an astronaut, but I'm involved in the space game, and we're doing some innovative new technologies and things. So, you know, I'm at least pursued my dreams. And look at that other alarming thing in the highlight here. United States has the highest college dropout rate in the world, in the industrial world. Can you believe that? That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. So as I talked, you know, we fail to inspire and engage our students from the onset. And the key thing is, you know, how do we expand the various pathways that students can move to excite them? And so what we've done is we've actually incorporated through really career technical education and really through career pathways, we found that as a way to inspire and engage folks in this project-based environment. And quite frankly, this, in my mind, is the most critical thing that we need to integrate. And I say integrate within our academic instruction, because it's not like you just think about how you even apply things, how you do things, how you actually get things done. It's typically not compartmentalized the way we have things compartmentalized by subjects and grades. You know, typically you blend them and you apply these academic principles and instructions to solve problems combined, in a combined way. You very rarely go through and, well, today is my reading part, and tomorrow will be my writing part, and the next part will be my problem-solving piece. It's kind of integrated, all as one. So we want to see these career-based technical education training components as that way of applying the academic principles and practices to something that's meaningful and problem-solving, so that they get a deeper understanding of that academic knowledge and principles into something that they actually see a result in and see the point of it. And then the light bulb comes on in these kids' eyes. I'm telling you, you got to see it. When we're doing this stuff down at the third grade level, they're working on CNC machines and 3D printers and technology that's incredible what these kids are doing. And just to see that light bulb go on is actually very exciting. And you know, when you look at this competency-based skills as really the primary outcome of a public education experience. You know, education for edification's sake is interesting, but in my mind, it ought to be a purpose. There ought to be a purpose. The application of it is what's going to really internalize it from pure its value standpoint. If you can't acquire a skill and gainfully earn enough money to allow you to do the things that you want to do in life, is it really meaningful? Yeah, there's a value in education, I agree, but how much more valuable is it if you can actually earn a living with the skill that you happen to have acquired? And, you know, a couple questions that an employer asks, right? What you know, your diploma or your credential, certification, whatever, is what gets you the interview. What gets you the job? What you've learned how to do with it. You know, that's it, the experience band. So we keep kids in education environments for, you know, half their life. Why can't we, as we are having them go through their academic pursuits and instructions, actually embed an experiential component of this so that they actually gain useful experience along with the academic instruction, that knowledge base, and get to apply it. And hence, when you look at all of the studies, and I mean, this is not the rocket science piece of this. It just isn't. They look at all of the studies and they showcase that how learning is retained and how it's really embedded in the multiple of pathways and sinews in your brain. And it's through multiple engagement of the various senses in the experience and relating that to the actual academic instruction or applied learning model. And so by doing things with your hands, involving more than just sight and hearing, but touch, taste, feel, smell, all of the other senses engaged together, retains this knowledge. And they know that this, especially if you begin this instruction early on into a child's education, for instance, doing dual immersion language programs. You know, when you think about, well, what does that have to do with like technological literacy and technology improvements and things? It's just another language. Chemistry is another language. So is music. So are the arts. So is just processing multiple languages. You're wiring your brain together to think differently. And this is all extraordinarily documented results in here. And you're seeing these students perform between 26 and 48% better by the time they graduate in high school than if they never had these dual pathways and multiple languages and all of these kinds of things. So this is all part of the learning model that if we're not incorporating it early on into their public education onset, we're really doing damage to our children, I think. You know, you're taking a choice away from them, and that's what this really is all about, is preparing students for choices. That is, they can choose to go to college. And by the way, if you're not A to G compliant, you might have heard those things, you know, college credit-bearing courses and kind of the rigor associated with that. Guess what? You've made a choice for that student. They're not going to college unless they pay for it themselves and pay for that remediation in community college or whatever at a fortune. And that's why we're seeing our kids graduating in 6 years instead of 4 years, like used to be the norm, is because of all of the remediation that's required before they can even qualify. And then we also want to prepare our students to choose careers. So we want a career readiness certification. We want credentials and other kinds of certifications and a skill that students can actually acquire during their high school experience. And we should be working on intensity of honing the details of knowledge in high school instead of remediation to just get them barely to graduate with a high school diploma. I mean, to me, that's a wasted time. We need to be inspiring and engaging these kids early on, again, into their public education experience. And the numbers are really compelling when you look at this. Let's see. Business is a real key piece of this. Because again, remember, it's that education, workforce development, and economic development aspect. We want to, and what we've done out in San Bernardino is aligned our educational system to meeting those demand and growth industry sectors in our workforce needs, and engaging our businesses within those demand and growth industry sectors into assisting at every single level there, not only for the parents through adult workforce development initiatives in our adult schools and things, but also ensuring that the kids grow up with those choices again to be able to engage in business activity that exists right in our own hometowns. And you know, work-based learning, we're talking about how do you actually tangibly engage businesses? Well, I'll tell you what, they'll engage when we become relevant, when education becomes relevant, and where workforce training actually does train someone to be able to be gainfully employed for a specific employer in a given industry sector and demand occupation. That's when business and industry will get involved. And so if we actually develop these pathways and develop this whole mindset of how do we embed this and align education with workforce development to yield economic development outcomes, that's when business will start to get tangibly involved. And by tangibly, I mean through investment, I mean through resources, I mean through providing interns, because we're providing a product that they can gainfully employ, not one that you have to tell them to pull up their pants and tighten their belt and don't ask for a raise on the first day of employment. You know, I mean, it's just kind of crazy what we're delivering to our employers out there. I just remember my first board meeting I ever attended was the one I got sworn in as vice president on at the school board, because we wrote off the school district. And it's not fair because, you know, when you get there, you see some of the great work that's actually being done. But it's not, it's a systemic issue that we're dealing with. These are fundamental, foundational elements that we're doing with it, and it's usually not the people. I tell you, I don't think I've ever met a teacher that said, gee, I wonder how many lives I can screw up today by showing up to work. I mean, this is just, they're great people. They want to do the best for our kids, but we've kind of, it's almost an issue with America in my mind. We've yielded to a system and a system that we put in place to support us and to serve us. And we've yielded to that system what we know is right and said, well, we can't do it because this law, this thing says we can't, this system says we can't do it. Wait a minute, we put it in place to support us. We put it in place to actually do the things and allow us to implement in an effective, functional manner to do what we know is right. And now we're using these systems as reasons why we can't deliver those quality systems, those of high expectations, those of building cultures of excellence and things. And it's crazy. This is America still. You know, we own it. If it's not working for us, let's retool it, let's change it, and just have it enable the things that we know are out there. And I'm telling you, our teachers are great. Many of them are great. And they are inspired and fired up, but they're kind of beaten down by the system. And so we need to change the system as well, not only the student achievement outcomes, but we need to build those cultures of excellence and build those systems of excellence. And we also got to see that our teachers are the best prepared, the highest quality professional development, and the highest expectations, not only for our students, but our teachers as well. And they need to be mentors. You know, when you look at these studies, you see what really drives a student's achievement. And it's not really a particular course or subject matter or topic of study. Yes, there's some things that inspire kids to kind of stay there, but it's usually a person that they've identified that said, you know, Mrs. McShee cared about me, and I know she cared, and she took an interest in my life, and that's why I'm the person I am today. And it's just fabulous to see. So the impact that we have is incredible. And when I look at where we are and in America, and I see I just see the opportunities that we're providing for our kids. And I'm going to go back, I think, one slide, and I'm going to say, all right, how do we actually do this? It usually doesn't happen by itself. When I look at what it really takes to engage our entire community, and specifically employers and those that really can make a difference in our communities. And this is key that we do this. And I know you've done this in Burbank to identify your regional demand and growth industry sectors and demand and growth industry occupations. And then taking it to the next step of identifying what skills, credentials, certifications, and abilities are required to meet those demand occupations within those demand industry sectors is really critical. And it's a kind of a peel the onion back. But if we don't understand, you know, what it is that we're trying to do and what are the requirements, so to speak. There's a requirements analysis. Then the likelihood that we're going to tool our education and workforce development systems to meet those demands, it's just not going to happen because we don't understand what demands we're trying to meet. You know, so that is a critical first step. Your workforce investment boards are involved in this, and then you know, concentrating some of your regional education and workforce development activities around those demand industry sectors are absolutely critical. And you know, one of the complaints that I've seen, and one of the elements I've seen out there, and it happens in San Bernardino, is, but there's no jobs. There aren't any jobs. There's just not enough jobs to meet now. When you start parsing that data and you're looking at it, and you look at the educational attainment level of what we do have, say, in San Bernardino, and you look at that gap, that actual education attainment gap between what's required and what we actually can deliver as a workforce, that's the real issue. There aren't enough jobs for unskilled people. That's the real key. Because as we talked, the technological literacy demands are going up. You saw from 1973, yeah, you could still have not super high technology and still be able to be successful in the job marketplace. Not anymore. And it's only going to get more and more and more prevalent. And there's no better illustration than just looking at what advanced manufacturing has done today. It's incredible. We'll show you some pictures of some of the things the kids are actually involved in here. And when we start looking at the education and training programs, the way we deliver them and the essential elements of what a successful training and education program is, we kind of looked at this back in 2010. That was the year we started Technical Employment Training Inc. This article came out in the New York Times, and it was basically an indictment on the performance of the Workforce Investment Act and some of the training programs that were supposed to really be providing opportunities for adults and students for that matter. And these are the indictments that they had. Dubious quality, i.e., the rigor, the intensity, how much did it really move an individual to some next level of skill attainment. Just wasn't there. No useful credentials, i.e. nationally recognized employer-valued certifications and credentials, were not there, and rarely involved potential employers, i.e. the people who are actually going to gainfully employ those individuals that you're trying to train in the first place, right? And then, too modest, i.e., they just weren't intensive enough to actually move them to the next skill level to command those growth industry sectors. So we started a company called Technical Employment Training Inc., Dr. Bill Clark and I'll have him take you through some of these things. But, and I promise I won't brief all of these charts. I'm going to flip through some of these pretty quickly. And there are handouts, by the way, if you want copies of this. But the four things and the four key elements that we've built into our training program are these four things. That it be a rigorous, intensive curriculum and training program. So most places can put a check mark beside that. A lot of community colleges, a lot of our public education systems have that one marked. But here's where we start, I guess, start falling off the trail. If you're doing something that doesn't confer a nationally recognized industry-valued certification, then it's just you or my organization saying, well, this is of value. And the credentials really is, in my mind, the validation of how valuable my intensive training academic environment was. And if you don't have it that's employer valued or some industry valued credential, then you're just basically your own testimony that this is of some value. And I see it of, really not super valuable, if you ask me. And then doing this in an on-the-job training environment. So what we've done with Technical Employment Training Inc. is it's not a college or it's not a training institute. It's actually an operational machine shop for our advanced manufacturing and precision machining tools. And we have a construction company, we have a logistics and warehousing company, and we do things so in our demand and growth industry sectors, we create operational businesses. And that's part of, by the way, of the sustainability piece of this as well, is that you're earning actually money from doing this as a real business, and students are actively engaged, getting gainful, useful experience in, quote, an on-the-job training environment through this process. Now, what does that mean, say, for an education program and in fifth grade? It's not like you're going to put a fifth grade to work in real projects and a sweatshop. I'm not proposing that, mind you. So just want to make that official. But it's that experiential piece. It's that engaging, inspiring elements to give them that hands-on, tangible experience, to let them just assess and even get just experience in seeing whether or not that is something that they may want to pursue a career in. So this applied academic knowledge in an on-the-job training environment is just part of the, and they call it pedagogy, the academic instructional strategy and approach of blending academic instruction with the hands-on learning environment to really get a well-rounded education and solidify that depth of knowledge in a student's brain. So this is really key. And then the fourth thing, essential element, is placement. And by placement, say for workforce development program, well, that's a piece of cake, right? Can we place them into gainful employment? So we actually have a placement agency right embedded within our training entity that links them to the businesses that we actually do business with, and gets students placed into gainful employment. Not just send them to monster.com on the computer, but we actually involved in our whole staffing entity to actually get them the jobs. And so that's kind of the 4 essential elements that we think are really key. And these are some details of our program. They go to school 30 hours a week, 6 hours a day, intensive training for 6 months, 5.5 to 6 months, every single day, punch time cards, do real quality control standards, production standards, all of these kinds of things to simulate what they're actually going to exhibit in the workplace and get them used to that as part of their academic instruction. They're also getting those kind of soft skill behavioral characteristics, because I'll tell you what, it's not usually the skill level and their ability that loses a person the job. It's usually those soft skills, unable to work in teams, unable to deal in interpersonal relationships, and all of the kinds of things that we think are kind of no-brainers, that there's no real kind of course that you train people on. But if you don't embed that kind of thing into the academic instruction and actually get that ingrained in the demonstrations of that whole academic knowledge base and applied learning base, that's how they'll learn, is by doing. It's just embedded into the entire curriculum. And so it's really an important element in my mind. And I'm going to skip through a few of these because we've talked about some of this, and we contract with industry and job development and placement services, kind of a summary of those 4 essential elements. And we're fully WASC accredited, and this is neat. We're only 4 years old, and typically you can't get WASC accredited for like 5 years, right? You got to have 3 years of financials, audited financials, all of these kinds of things. But we partnered with our San Bernardino County Regional Occupational Program. We purchase teachers from them. We provide them industry folks that get their emergency credentials and then certified and credentialed at the end. So we've got our whole teacher credentialing program built into this as well, because you can't find people that are qualified to teach and get embedded into this technology certification programs. They're just non-existent. So we're embedded into our Cal State system. Cal State San Bernardino produces the most teachers out of any Cal State system in the state of California. And yet, and I was on part of the development program for our new College of Education, and we introduced a technological literacy laboratory that actually embedded this kinds of teaching instructional strategies on linked learning, on depth of knowledge, on applied learning, project-based learning as part of the teaching credential, which is essential. I mean, we can't have expectations for our teachers to teach and learn if they're unable to, if we've not given them that instruction and provide them that level of experience. So let's broad-based community support. That's Congressman Jerry Lewis. He was the chairman of the Appropriations Committee for the entire Congress, and we pulled together our whole community in this. And this is part of the things that, actually part of what you're doing here today is create that shared vision, and that's critical, quite frankly. We'll never really accomplish this and unite and align our systems if we're not in the same room, if we don't ask, what do we always want to see, hear, and feel in a community? What do we never want to see, hear, and feel? Where do we want to go? What aspirations do we have for our children? What aspirations do we have for ourselves? And, you find out that although it might not be evident from the front page of the newspaper, we're actually more aligned than we are apart in what we actually want to see for our kids and for ourselves. We all want good quality jobs. We all want good quality of life. We want great education institutions. We want opportunities for ourselves, for our kids. We want safe communities, all of the things. So we're really alike and aligned. And until you go through that process, and actually it sounds like semantics, sounds like an exercise, but it's really an important thing to do, to say, that's our priorities. Here's where we're going. And until you establish your priorities, you'll be embarking on activity after activity after activity, driven by public input, by comments from everybody, by just somebody else's ideas, by your own ideas. And you'll be confusing activity with accomplishment, and the likelihood of you actually moving a broad-based agenda, like moving people from dependency to prosperity along a trajectory, and actually seeing people migrate off of public assistance and into taxpayership and into actually lives and participating in the American dream. I mean, you do so by establishing a shared vision in a community, by prioritizing those things you are going to work on, and hence defining what your outcomes and accomplishments are, and then your activities and your budgeting and resource allocations and everything are aligned towards those objectives that you've all got into the community. And I mean every divergent interest in your community brought together to say, that's where we want to go. And that's a key. It sounds like semantics, sounds like a strategic planning thing, but it's not strategic planning. It's pre-strategic planning. This is not to write a mission, vision, and objectives kind of statement. It's to really garner the commitment of a community towards that shared vision so we can all be aligned and moving forward in the same direction. Then you can go do your detailed action plans, implementation strategies, and budget allocations with the foundation of knowing that you've actually established that shared vision and bought in by the entire community. It's a key element of what we got to do. So as we skip through some of this kind of stuff and growth and demand, we've seen this. These are some of our elementary kids. The machine you see in the back there is a 3D printer. This is going to be the new, I'm telling you, production. This is new manufacturing. They're printing. Are we almost out of time? Or Bill, you want to get in on this? All right, now flip charts for you. You come in on this. And Dr. Bill actually took these pictures, was here developing curriculum and coursework for these kids, is developing literally the experiences that our kids are having here, and just fabulous to see what he's doing. So, Bill.
Thanks, Mike. I thought I'd step in and say a few words so you don't think I'm just a shadow back here. And I think what Mike really alluded to is, you know, I was talking to Mayor Gordon as we were coming over here today, and I asked a question. You know, I taught for 35 years in the educational system. I'm out of aerospace, General Dynamics in Pomona, and basically part of my experiences was actually that real work experience in bringing students into real technology. But really what I'd like to focus on this evening is this. Everybody in this audience is probably a baby boomer or working way beyond retirement. And in 2010, when I left the educational system, I had one of the best facilities in California. We had students that competed all over the world in manufacturing, but it was just a small group of people. And I had Mike here on my advisory committee, and he tried to bring our college program as a private entity so we could accelerate the training and train people more rapidly, because he said, Bill, I need machinists. Can you supply them? And I said, well, Mike, it takes anywhere between 2 to 6 years, because if the class doesn't fill, we drop it. We can't certify unless they meet certain requirements. So in 2010, when I retired May 22nd of 2010. June 1st, Mike Gallo called me and he said, Bill, do you want to go back to work? I said, well, could I have a week off? He said, there's no time for work off. So I said, what do you think we should do? He says, I've got an idea. So we went down to my existing facility, technical employment training. He says, here's the keys, build your school. Now, it gets better than that, because I asked him, I said, well, Mike, you know, we need money. He said, there is no money. I said, how soon do I have to have this operational? He says, well, I didn't tell you the second thing. Now, remember, it's June 1st. He says, July 10th, you got your first group of 30 people funded by the Workforce Investment Board. I said, we have to build a machine shop. He says, let's build a collaborative amongst the community. Now, the reason I say the collaborative's imperative is this. Every one of us in this room right now, and I spoke to a few of the ladies here earlier, and I said, time is ticking as we sit in this room this evening. I'm 63 years old. I'm only doing this because, you know, I like to be harassed in the middle of the night. This guy here stays up all night. He says, Bill, what are you doing tonight? I said, well, I'm thinking about tomorrow, about the students we're training. Oh, and also the groups of teachers that are coming in to be trained on the new technology, because we have a problem in this country, and that is we are lacking a skilled workforce. It is so almost unbelievable at this point that it sort of scares me in a sense. I deal with companies every day, large manufacturers, construction companies now, and the same question is this: Bill, I cannot run my equipment because I need 15 people. This is in one company. Across the basin, we have companies asking the same questions. You've had companies here in Burbank, Crane Aerospace, who says, how do we find skilled people? Now, there's a couple things. We can committee it to death. We can talk about it. We can meet over and over on it. And we can sink as a country if we don't do something about it. So the reason I'm alluding to this is, when we started technical employment training, I had 6 weeks to be operational. That means I had to build a collaborative workforce, a relationship with the school district, not that I didn't already have it being in education for 35 years, local industry that I worked with, the whole gamut to make this operational. And of course, as San Bernardino was going into bankruptcy, as you all are aware of, we had a lot of empty buildings and furniture that we put in our facility to actually get a makeshift manufacturing plant. Now remember also, since I'm dealing with an aerospace engineer, it had to be to a standard that was state-of-the-art technology. So I started asking favors from the local companies that had a big need. And one of the key things was this. They said, Dr. Clark, we need early education through high school and the displaced workers and the students that have taken degrees in things where they can't find work anymore. We need people to go back to work. So our goal was to start providing the kind of skills necessary to re-gear America's workforce with high skills technology. And that's why Mike put the emphasis on certification, credentials, and outcomes, so when the students complete with the federal certification, the employers are just grabbing for them. We have so many employers now wanting students in so many different cities saying, can you bring this program here? It takes a big effort, it takes a very focused, and it takes a collaboration between the stakeholders within the community to make it happen. You cannot continually talk about it for the next 5 years. We will not be in business in this country in 5 years. We put technical employment training together in 6 weeks. We now are doing things unprecedented, and Mike brought this picture up here, and it's quite appropriate because one of the things that we did now was he said, Bill, we got to go one step further, and you don't mind me telling him about your school board experience. When I took on this position as president of technical employment training, I said, Mike, we have to get into the school system and make those changes. We have to educate the administrative people that are the decision makers within a school system. So Mike took on the challenge of running for the school board. And against all odds, I went to my counterpart, since I had just left the community college, and I said, would you support Mike Gallo? And the first question they asked me was, Bill, he wasn't in the union. I'm not against unions. I was in the California Teachers Association for 35 years. They got a lot of money out of me. So Mike ran for school board. He won. We started then working within the system to help teachers grow and learn the technology so they can teach young people that technology all the way through the process. This picture up here is we had a elementary school teacher, third grade teacher, because remember, I'm putting now laboratories from kindergarten through high school. I'm building high technology labs that teach rapid prototyping technology, manufacturing, language arts, writing processes within the school system. One of the key components is we have to educate the educators. We bring the educators in to technical employment training 3 days a week. We teach them rapid prototyping. We teach them the math that applies to their lessons. We write the lesson plans so they see relevance, and we send them back to the classrooms. During the summer, we put them in internships with our local companies. So they start building that skill acquisition needed to transfer that new technology to the youth. So we have students from third grade level. I was with them last week. They were 2.5 feet high, working with rapid prototype machines. But you're teaching the families and the culture within the community the next level of technology. So when those young people reach high school and they have certifications to go into the workplace, whether it be Loma Linda University, whether it be the art media world, whether it be manufacturing, they have the skills to be employed, go on to the universities, and make America great again in the skills we need. So Mike is, we're driving this because we have a passion for it. We work on this around the clock, and we're trying to give this to other communities because without this, people, the next generation has to pay my Social Security. That means they have to be skilled, they have to be working, and we have to inspire the teachers, the students. They're going to be teaching this new technology. And I'm telling you right now, this new technology is moving so fast. These little kids that are on iPads writing programs, just one of the examples, and I can probably talk as long as Mike talks. We had an interesting experience at our Indian high school site this year. We haven't been able to find a teacher. It's very difficult. So what are we doing? We're training the teacher. The kids spend time with me 3 days a week in my plant, 1 hour a day. Yes, a lot of the principal asked me, Bill, what about the liability? I said, listen, I got product liability, I got student liability, let's make this happen. They walk over, we have 21 high school from sophomores to seniors. In that program, I have never seen students so engaged in my life. And this is just one little school. Think of what we could do across the United States of America. Think what we could do in Burbank. You guys are connected with the studios. You're connected with industries near the airport. Think if we put in place a program, a pilot program, in a short period of time to support the technologies needed by companies so our next generation could go to work. Think of what would happen. It would be like a plague going across the United States. And I'm not talking about Ebola either. I'm talking about a technology change for the way we engage young people. And if we don't take ownership of this, I'm telling you right now, within 5 years, we've got a problem in this country. Because in 5 years, I'm not going to be doing this. I told Mike, I said, Mike, at 65, I'm going to reconsider. He said, oh, Bill, you can go to 75. I don't think I can make 75. I spent 35 years with the most high technology programs in the world. I competed all over the world. I now want to train communities. I want to change the way San Bernardino is. We are a bankrupt city, but we are going to make a difference. We are going to change that community with technology that's unprecedented. And we want to spread that knowledge. And surely Mayor Gordon has asked us to come out here, talk a little about our program, answer any kind of questions that you may have of us. Was it difficult? It's very difficult, but we're building that strategic partnership with the complete community, separating whether you're Democrat, Republican, what you believe in. We're focused on how do we change our community? How do we educate the next generation? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Bill. I'm going to flip through a few more of these charts, and you can see student engagement is really the key. This is our high school at Indian Springs High School that Bill mentioned with the 3D SolidWorks stations coupled with the 3D printers, so they're printing parts and then putting them to practice manufacturing on those CNCs you see in the background there. What a continuum. They're having a blast and gainfully employed and leading manufacturers, working in the local area and earning a living for themselves. And we've got a couple of other things. We've gotten involved in some other things, and this is starting to get into what I call the launch initiative, which again is to launch people along a trajectory from dependency to prosperity. That's kind of the concept and mindset. And so we've found that we've actually had to deal with more than just the technical training and education components. That's kind of the primary intervention strategy that allows someone to move from where they may find themselves in a position of dependency to something that they can actually use to generate economic prosperity for themselves. And so we found that we actually had to embark on support systems like stabilized housing, wraparound supportive services, things as traumatic as drug treatments and other kinds of things to bring their lives out of crisis and trauma and at least bringing them to a point of stabilization before we could triage them into career development and education programs and things. And, because if your life is in trauma, and not just those other things, but say traumas like childcare, lack of transportation, and other things that are equally as debilitating from participating in a comprehensive training initiative like we're talking about doing. But you got to deal with it. Yet we've got a system that we've built up that have all of these supports in place. However, there's no real alignment of those. We are service-centric organizations. We've got tens of thousands of, I call them random acts of excellence out there doing really great work as individual organizations, but very little alignment, and very little alignment to the fact where we actually become a family-centric model and move them in and out of the various interventions that they might find themselves along that trajectory from dependency to prosperity through that stabilization phase into their triage into their career development stages and ultimately placement into the demand and growth industry sectors in a region. And so we call that the launch initiative, and I'll show you, based on demographics we happen to have look at that statistic down in the middle of the chart, 54.3% of our population on some sort of public assistance. How do you build an economic foundation and framework on that one? You're building dollar trees and good luck with your purchasing power and all of that kind of stuff, trying to build an economic foundation with that kind of demographic. So skilled workforce, higher ed, and working collaboratively was key. These are kind of our vision elements, kind of the core focus of any community. And these happen to be our growth and demand industry sectors and understanding that. But then the alignment of taking in a series of stages, and what'd you expect from a rocket scientist, but a launch initiative, right? And then going from stabilized housing, supportive services, career development, and career placement. And this is a no-brainer, okay, it's a pathway, I got it. So what's the tangible interventions here? What does it really do? It takes and aligns organizations that happen to provide support in those various categories and overlays a support infrastructure, universal intake, universal assessment, a contractual relationship with clients and families really that we're investing in through our public welfare dollars and things like that. So we come up with a mutually developed implementation plan and strategy. And then we couple them with life coaches, I call them dream managers, that actually help them navigate through the myriad of tens of thousands of supportive services and intervention strategies along in their life development plan or career development plan, and then place them into gainful employment at the end. And so this overlay, this structure, is to provide this family-centric model to help families, again, navigate through that process instead of randomly ricocheting through this social service environment forever, which that's basically what we're allowing people to do. We have a 30,000 family housing in San Bernardino County. We house 30,000 families. We have a waiting list of another 30,000. That's 92,000 people on a waiting list. So clearly we're not moving that pipeline. We're not filling, people see that as a landing pad, not a launching pad. And we've got to change our whole investment strategies and return on investments that we're getting for our public assistance investments that we're making. And I'm not talking about those that really, have to rely on our generosity. And, I'm talking about able-bodied adults that have no, real issues with being able to gainfully employ themselves and things. And so I'll kind of flip through this and get to one of the key charts on this, which was the overlay. All of us owning the strategy, building this, and you can see those elements of universal intake and assessment, the dream management and reporting and accountability, and providing that overhead structure for support organizations. And there's a whole sustainability plan associated with this, just taking a little bit of dollars from each one of the organizations on the overhead expenditures that they don't want to do anyway, and takes away from the direct services that each organization provides, is these compliance elements, these reporting to philanthropic and funding entities and things like this that they'd rather not do anyway. We should really have an efficient organizational process for how we do this, and the Launch Initiative, Inc. is that process. And now the last chart that I have is really your critical next steps. And this really, in my mind, is the approach of how do we actually implement the processes, the things that, we've kind of talked to and that I've alluded to through the thing. First one is developing that shared vision. You are embarking on that now. Mayor Gordon has done this. You're pulling together all kinds of regional assets here in some of the people that exist or that are here tonight, some of the people that I've met that are just unbelievable committed members of this community, from folks with your television studios, NBC, and Jack, I see you were in the room, your mayor and council and school board, that really are embarking on this shared vision, including your chamber director. Just great, Gary. What a pleasure it is to know you all and to see the enthusiasm that you have all exhibited here. And Mark Scott, your city manager, just what a great team that you have. You got to do this and get that formal process, and I say a facilitated formal process to actually document this. And then establishing a dedicated leadership team. Many of you may have seen the Stanford Innovation Review, Collective Impact it's called, on that's the type of collaboration that we're trying to build to, one of true collective impact, that when you come together, you're actually doing more than just sharing resource and everything, but coming together to actually achieve what seemingly is the unachievable. And that's really a key. But you got to get a leadership team in. They call it a backbone organization, one that is dedicated. You can't just embed it into an organization and give it to Susie or Johnny or Jose as an extra duty and responsibility to see this thing happen, because it won't happen. It just isn't going to happen. It's a full-time effort worthy of that consideration, and in order to make collective impact work, you're going to have to develop that dedicated leadership team. Then you come up with an implementation strategy and an incremental deployment plan, which involves really a demonstration that people, look, funding follows performance, and people mostly say, well, I just need the money and I'll do it. Now, typically the reason you don't have the money is because you really haven't defined the program, project, effort that you really want to do in sufficient ways to garner and release people from their wallets. And I'll tell you, it's a real hard sell. If you just talk generalities and you got an idea, those are hard to sell. But if you get something that you can actually show people and you've demonstrated and you put in your own skin in the game, so to speak, through investments with the current resources that you all have, you can get a demonstration program off the dime and actually do this. And that'd be kind of a next step that I'd suggest that you do, is get some achievable scale demonstration project using your own current resources before you go ask for others beyond your core team to invest. And defining and documenting those outcomes is really key. What is it you're doing? What are the expected metrics? What are the outcomes? How you tracking folks? And all of the things that you need to do. And then you can get into your resource allocation plan and expand your resources and compete for grants. And you just think about how, if you did something like a big, broad initiative to move your workforce, create opportunities for your young people, and truly create that passport to prosperity for people, well, that's what the funding entities and procurement agencies and all of these folks wishing to invest want to see. They want to see a big, broad-based agenda, and yet the only reason that we're not seeing that, say, in San Bernardino is because we lack the leadership capacity, lack the alignment, and lack that true integration of the, just our own regional assets to see that being done. They want to invest. They want to put the money there. And the things that they're going to put money on are those things that do yield those broad-based objectives and achieve truly things that you didn't think you could move in a community, like changing 54.3% of your people on some sort of a public assistance. And imagine just cutting that number in half, just taking 20% off. Do you know what kind of purchasing power that could enable? Do you know what kind of taxpayership base that could do? It's just incredible. We look at the numbers that generates. And to me, this is an economic development imperative if you didn't care about people. If you cared about people, it's a moral imperative that we embark on this work. So it's an economic development imperative we do it. It's a moral imperative that we do it. We need to build healthy and strong communities, and the way to do it is through collective impact and having our systems that we're already investing in, tons of money, just aligned along that same shared vision and objective. So I think that concludes my presentation here, and just thank you for listening to such a lengthy presentation, and hope that's what you wanted. So, thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mike and Bill. Wow, just listening to those remarks is moving. I'm going to invite the members of the panel, the council members and the Board of Education members to come back up on to the dais, and we're going to continue the meeting, and we're going to have some comments from some of the speakers with us tonight who have been engaged in this process. So you join me? I think we have one member on her way back, but we're going to continue. What we've prepared tonight, a number of the people who are here with us tonight have actually joined me, and we actually were able to pay a visit out to San Bernardino on 2 occasions, and both Mike Gallo and Dr. Clark greeted us and gave us a firsthand view of what they're doing, and it really is special. And so we've invited a few folks who joined on those trips to prepare and provide some remarks to us, so we get their perspectives from folks who are engaged in our community to see how this might fit with our goals and aspirations here in Burbank. So first speaker we've invited is our city manager, Mark Scott. Mark, would you please share your comments with us?
Thank you very much. And I'm going to try to set the tone for this. What we're trying to do is just to get some perspectives from some of us that have been involved in this initiative up to this date. And each of us has a perspective from a different industry, so to speak. And I'll try to set the tone. I'm going to be very quick. I'm relating to this from the perspective of a city manager. And I wanted to say that this type of model is really representative of what the modern version is of economic development. You all will know through the years, cities have engaged in economic development in such ways as developing new malls or new shopping centers, hotels, and these have all been vitally important. I'll tell you from the revenue of the city, that's vitally important. But in the modern situation that we have, especially after the economic troubles of the past decade, job development is the thing. I mean, this is really what cities are going to win and lose on. So when we look at the world now, we no longer think, and I think some of us are guilty of this in the past, that government is the answer to people's woes. In fact, I think that's almost laughable at this stage in our history. Government isn't the creator and implementer of solutions. Government should be. I think the best model is the convener and the facilitator, or that's a role that we can help play. And I think here we've got a school district and a city that is saying we don't want to solve the problems of this economy. We want to help bring partners together in order to be able to take on these challenges and for Burbank to succeed as a result. Modern economic development has to be focused on creation of wealth. And I don't mean individual wealth, I mean community wealth. And if you don't, then you have winners and losers. Economic development is a competitive business. It's competitive between countries, and it's competitive among cities. And those that are standing still are going to lose. So we look at Burbank, we're in a very good situation. We're a stable community, economically stable. We've got tremendous location and opportunity. But even the Burbanks of the world need to do something to be able to move forward in the realm of job creation and preparing our residents. There's got to be something in it for the residents. And what's in it is that we can make sure that we prepare our children and our young adults to be able to be competitive in the world as the world evolves. And I think this is a model that gives us that opportunity. It's at the cutting edge, and I think it helps us create that Burbank brand promise that we're going to try to be a community that is prepared for the jobs of the future in order to serve our residents and keep our community strong. So we're very pleased at the city to have an opportunity to be involved in all of this. I couldn't thank enough these two gentlemen that have been presenting tonight for the opportunity they've given us to borrow from them, and we're hoping to continue that partnership long and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm next going to ask for her comment Superintendent Dr. Jan Britz, who also joined us on the trip out San Bernardino. Dr. Britz.
Thank you. The school district is very eager to do a lifelong partnership with the city and with the local businesses. We believe that this fits very well with our vision and certainly with what's happening in education today. The Governor Brown really has a vision to also do the education that prepares our students for careers. In addition to that, the school district is already in this pathway. We just received a career trust grant of $1.4 million, which will actually initiate 2 career pathways that works very well and is aligned with our local businesses. One is in digital media, and the other one is in digital manufacturing. And digital manufacturing is completely new for our school district. In fact, we'll be working with our partners to design that pathway and make sure it's aligned to the employment skills needed in our local businesses. But at the same time, as we would love to partner with the city and with our local businesses with this to give our students the opportunity to be prepared with the work skills that's needed in this community, we cannot do it alone. So we really reach out to the city and to our businesses to come forward at this time and to share your resources. We have another program in our schools right now, which is retail marketing, where we have 3 teachers in that program, and we prepare our students for retail marketing, and it places students right here in local businesses right after they get out of high school. We need more of these kind of opportunities for our students. And I just want to, I appreciate Mr. Scott, our city manager's comments, and certainly support everything he says. I also want to thank Mayor Gordon for his support, his ideas, and his vision, and getting us all into this visitation and thinking bigger than what we currently have in Burbank Unified School District and in the community. President Reynolds as well, who has also been there, and to really kind of spearhead this and encourage us to really think big and that we can do it. But I would really like us all to really kind of come together to form a committee, a steering committee, and to really outline the next steps so that we can get this going. As Dr. Clark said this evening, we can't wait. We've had this, we've been energized, we've had this vision for a while. It's time for us to really design an action plan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Britz. The next person who's going to share their perspective on this, if I can ask Gary Olson, who's President and CEO of the Burbank Chamber of Commerce, to step forward to the microphone. And I can't thank Gary enough for his extensive efforts and work to make a lot of these ideas come to the fore. Gary, please.
Good evening, council members and school board members. I'm actually wearing two hats tonight, not just my chamber hat. But obviously, from the chamber's perspective, we are interested at all times. One of our primary goals is to enhance the overall prosperity here in Burbank. With that said, I'm also wearing a second hat, if you will. I serve as the chairman of the board of the Verdugo Workforce Investment Board. Dr. Britz just alluded to the fact that a $1.4 million grant has been received by the district. Actually, our Verdugo Workforce Investment Board applied for that grant from the state of California Department of Education, and the total amount was $6 million. I might add that Mr. Gallo serves on the state WIB board, one of only two public members to do so, and he helped assess that application before it was finally submitted. We thank you, Mike, for that effort on your part. The collaboration in putting together the grant request included the Glendale Unified School District, the Burbank Unified School District, Glendale Community College, Cal State Northridge, and also our major studios here in Burbank. And the $6 million is being shared by these various entities, not the studios, but the other entities I mentioned. So we're very proud about that. Those of us who serve on the Verdugo Workforce Investment Board do so at the pleasure of the Glendale City Council. We are actually appointed and voted upon by the council. Some of our members include Debbie Kutka, our city treasurer, the former chair of the Verdugo Workforce. We also have Brady Griffin. The WIB helps support the Burbank Workforce Connection here in Burbank. We're very proud of the fact the last 2 years, the Workforce Connection here in Burbank has held 2 veteran job fairs, and they've been very successful. Warner Brothers, Universal Studios, and various entities in town, Southwest Airlines, there to interview and hire veterans, returning veterans from active duty. So we're very proud about that. We also have Mary Hamzoyan from the city, the Community Development Department, on our board. We have Dr. Andre Vannekerk from Woodbury University. We have Jim Darcy, he's here tonight from Copy Central. Jim, nice to have you with us tonight. We have Lucy Bergdorf on behalf of the Burbank Bob Hope Airport, and so forth. I want to add something to the credentials of Mr. Gallo, just in case you were wondering what Kelly Space and Technology actually does. They're heavily involved at the present time in building rocketry for Virgin Galactic. You've all heard about that, and the efforts by Dr. Richard Branson to go into space, and also SpaceX. So just a couple of the projects they're working on at Kelly. You know, the fact that Mr. Gallo has indicated that San Bernardino is a city that's bankrupt, and that 54.3% of its residents receive some sort of government subsidy. And yet over the last 2.5 years in working with the schools, what a magnificent achievement has been accomplished. You know, I can't help but think that one of the greatest periods of creativity, in our country's history was during the Great Depression. People were willing to risk, take chances, be creative, try things. And so in San Bernardino, in that environment of bankruptcy, out of that came all of this creativity. And when you visit, as I have been privileged to do so on 2 occasions now, field trips out there, it is amazing, absolutely astounding to see third graders doing 3D work on machinery and what have you. In addition, the Technical Employment Training Center that they established, they have a contract with Saudi Arabia. They're doing parts, precise parts are being created and manufactured under contract. They also have a student program and business that they've created where they're doing prosthetics for Loma Linda University. It's truly amazing what they've been able to accomplish in just 2.5 years through the school system. I mentioned the grant because it dovetails with this whole effort of what we're trying to achieve here in Burbank. Our chief economic engine, of course, is the entertainment industry. And it's at a state of flux from the standpoint that it's transitioning. Transitioning from the standpoint that all your production workers and what have you, the old traditional ways are going towards digital and so forth. We had a panel of 4 executives from the production labor union speak at a recent Verdugo Workforce Investment Board meeting. Mayor Gordon attended that meeting. He got inspired by what they had to say. They believe in a training center hub being created here in Burbank that will impact the entire region, Verdugo region, if you will. So we see really the possibilities. And if you could all get on a bus right at this moment tonight, or tomorrow rather, and go out to San Bernardino, go into their schools, and see how these children are being inspired to have aspirations to achieve things in life beyond just a diploma. It is truly, truly amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. We're also very fortunate to have this evening, making his cameo appearance, Don Nakamoto. Don Nakamoto is the Director, Administrator, and Workforce Development Director of the Workforce Investment Board of Verdugo Consortium, City of Glendale, and he's been kind enough to share some of his insight and experience with us, and he has some remarks for us. Don, thank you for coming. Please share your remarks.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor Gordon. Good evening, City Council members and school board members. Just a little bit of background about the Verdugo Workforce Investment Board. We're, as Mike has mentioned, a federally established organization. Our mission locally in Burbank, Glendale, and La Cañada, Flint Ridge is to look at what's happening in our local economy, the workforce needs, the needs of the employers, and figure out solutions and policies to help meet the needs of the employers and also help the job seekers get work. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the reasons why the Workforce Investment Board is in support of this project, but was also instrumental in getting the Career Pathways Trust Grant. I've actually been involved in the Burbank community it's been about 3 decades now. And I've lived through 3 of the probably most prominent workforce events that have affected this community. Back in the 1980s to 90s, I was a research and communications director for the California Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union. And I was based at Burbank, actually the Skunk Works that built the stealth fighter, other major projects for the military. And at that time, I think we had something like 9,000 workers in the Burbank area. Going back to the 1940s, at one point there were 98,000 workers in the Burbank area employed by Lockheed, probably more than the entire population of Burbank. But shortly after the downturn started in aerospace, those 9,000 workers were let go. The Burbank city basically was in a position to transition to another industry. They had to for basically surviving through their economy. So the transition occurred over a number of years to entertainment, which became much more prominent in the city. During the 1990s, the industry started making a transition from analog to digital technology. This was a huge transition. It affected the entire entertainment workforce. And so part of our mission on the Verdugo WIB was to help those workers that were impacted by digital technologies, make that transition from analog over to digital. During that period, over, I think, about a 12-year period, we've trained 2,000 to 2,500 entertainment workers in the industry now to upgrade their skills so they can continue to work locally and have strong careers. The third area that we feel that our board has really been involved in, that really is the impetus behind our work on the Career Pathways Grant, but also the initiative that Mayor Gordon has talked about, is the real revolution that's happening technology-wise. I saw a study by IBM a few years ago, and they were talking about the fact that in the last 2 years, 90% of the world's data has been created. If you can think about that a little bit, the implications of that are tremendous. We're going through a technology revolution. All of our industries are being impacted. Industries that deal with digital technology are being impacted greatly. And entertainment, advanced manufacturing, other areas are trying to deal with what's happening here. Just as an example, in entertainment, we've seen the migration of parts of major technology companies coming to Southern California to establish a presence here. You may ask why they're coming down here at companies that you would think would really have no connection to our local economy. Companies like Amazon, Netflix, YouTube, down the list, they're all established over on the west side. Their purpose is that they see the talent here in the LA area, the entertainment talent that are developing the entertainment content. A lot of that content is shifted over to mobile technologies, to the internet, and that's part of the future of our entertainment industry. That's some of the reason that our board of directors like Jim and Gary, Debbie, have really focused in the last couple years on creating projects to help our workers make that transition, to get those skills to make them competitive, but also to retain the jobs here locally. So we continue to push in that direction, and we look forward to working with the City Council School District on achieving something in that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don. Next, I'd like to invite our very own City Treasurer, Debbie Kuchta, to come and share some of her remarks. And she has extensive experience, as been alluded to, the Workforce Investment Board and watching our pennies. Debbie.
It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Good evening, City Council members and school board and folks that are joining us out in the audience. I do come from kind of a unique perspective because I have been on the Workforce Investment Board for 15 years and was a past chair, as was mentioned. I also sat on the school board, though, for 7 years, and some of my colleagues are up at the dais tonight. But I also owned a manufacturing company for 30 years, owned and operated a rivet manufacturing business. We also, as Mr. Gallo mentioned, had difficulty finding trained employees that knew how to work the CNC machines. As technology progressed, we had our employees that was either training them with the new skills or just getting them in with the quality control, with the new quality standards that were going in. We did not compete in the aerospace industry for that reason. It was just a decision that we made that it would be very hard for us to compete. One of the things, though, Don, I don't think was, we'll have to brag a little bit on some of the things that he's done. He is just a master grant writer. And some of the projects that he's gone through were an entertainment grant, an H-1B grant, where we had $3 million that he then leveraged with grants from a couple other sources. We actually, the Workforce Investment Board, partnered with 20 entertainment unions and local employers and trained over 2,000 entertainment industry employees to either upgrade their skills or make them qualify for new positions. And I think when you talk about economic development, like Mr. Scott was referencing, those are the kind of things that you want to do because you want to make those companies that are participating in your community, make them valid and good competitors. Speaking again from the manufacturing component, we mentioned Crane Industries. They're going to have a lot of their employees retire. They're going to have a very difficult time finding the employees with the skills that can come in and take off. The The Workforce Investment Board they partnered with CMTC, which is the California Manufacturing Training Consulting Firm, and they worked with a local Glendale company called Accurate Dial. I don't know, they were in the news a while back. They were actually featured in a 76-page White House report that was entitled Ready to Work, Job-Driven Training and American Opportunity. They lost 25% of their sales and were in danger of losing their 22 employees. But what CMTC came in and did is they got them their ISO 9001 certification, they got them their AS 9100C certification, and I actually had the opportunity to attend with Don and Gary, I don't remember if you were there, and Jim, I think you were there, where they actually had a reception, and these employees were so proud of the additional training that they had, and it made them so much more competitive. They're now growing, and some of the things that they've accomplished since that time that we stepped in, a Lockheed Martin key supplier, Northrop Grumman Small Business Supplier of the Year, and their products go, because now they have that aerospace certification, their products have been in the Stealth V-2 bomber, the Bradley fighting vehicle, the Ford Saline Mustang, and the Space Shuttle. That enabled that company, not only were they saved from the brink of probably filing bankruptcy and having major layoffs, they are now very successful. And the school district has a great opportunity. When you talk about funding, if we can get the Workforce Investment Board to kind of couple with some of the people, and you look at who's in the room tonight, the chamber, the airport, local businesses, the school district, our Arts for All Federation, when you bring all those partners together, that's when you actually have a really good chance of applying for and receiving grant monies that has been demonstrated by the WIB, where they've gone out and they've really made great inroads. The school district has ROP monies as a source, and the school district has some great programs in place already. There's an Academy of Finance that's at Burbank High that actually partners with local businesses. We sit on their advisory board. These students meet and greet and deal with local business people. They go on field trips downtown, the Federal Reserve, and they go to banks, stock brokerages. This is preparing kids. It's not just they're not meeting the A through G requirements and the Common Core, which are really necessary, but it's providing them with skills to go on again, whether it's college or career readiness. So I think this is just a tremendous opportunity that we have here, and it goes beyond the school district. It's the community, and that's why it's really great to see all of you up there today, too, because you are a key component of making this a really successful initiative. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. We've heard this evening a lot of comments referencing the art community, and we're very fortunate that we have with us the Executive Director of the Burbank Arts for All Foundation, Trina Pitchford, and she'll give some of her perspectives of how vital the arts community can play a role in what we're trying to accomplish. Trina?
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us to speak this evening. I feel much like a visitor to this idea as much as all of us here in the room. As is mentioned, I'm Trina Pitchford. I'm the Executive Director of the Burbank Arts for All Foundation. Before I provide a perspective as a nonprofit on the presentation tonight, I'd like to provide you all with a little bit of context regarding the partnership of Arts for All in our community, and then connect it to where the foundation sees it in terms of our future workforce. So I'd like to ask you to use your imagination, as we do represent creativity, and imagine around me and beside me, and definitely people in front of me, and generations behind me are many citizens of the Burbank community who are committed to arts education for all of our Burbank Public School students. To give you an idea of who those folks might be, they are certainly the Foundation's Board of Directors, our District Amazing Arts for All Coordinator, Peggy Flynn, our BUSD Board of Education members, certainly our superintendent, school teachers, principals, administrators, teaching artists, parents, local businesses, large and small, artists, universities, civic and community leaders. All of us together represent the partnership and collaboration in a movement that we all call Arts for All, which is actually a countywide initiative. In our district, Arts for All was adopted by the Burbank Unified School District Board of Education in 2006. A thoughtful and engaging and detailed strategic planning process began to provide standards-based arts education across our district. Shortly after the district's plan was created, the Burbank Arts for All Foundation was formed as a 501c3 arts education foundation with a seed grant provided by Warner Brothers Entertainment. Over the years, the foundation has provided more than $250,000 in grant funding, all aligned with the district's Arts for All strategic plan. We've also engaged, convened, and informed our community through a variety of fundraising and complementary community outreach events focused on the importance of arts education for our students, career paths in their backyards, and the future of our great city. Our school district Arts for All plan has also grown its commitment over the years, providing funding, resources, and support to reinstate programs that have been cut due to the state's budget crisis. Engaging certainly in support of our local university, and many of the entertainment industry businesses provide guidance, in-kind employee services, and a number of engaging opportunities. Just this summer, our Board of Education and Superintendent increased support for arts education through its local control accountability plan. And even more recently, as mentioned earlier this evening, begun the work of the Career Pathways Grant. It's been a collaborative spirit with many partners, a coalition of the community focused on the delivery of the district's Arts for All plan, for the benefit of all of our public school students, and ultimately the future of our community. The Arts for All community understands the joint venture that you are exploring this evening. The foundation believes that arts education for our public students is career preparedness, in addition to providing a whole education for all of our students. We believe the arts can be both a teaching tool and a career path. I'd like to provide a few statistics to introduce the perspective of how arts education in Burbank can develop our future workforce. As Gary mentioned, it's about 65% of Burbank's economic base, directly or indirectly supported by the entertainment and media companies. I'm going to also quote an IBM study. In 2010, a global IBM study of 1,500 chief executive officers from 60 countries and 33 industries worldwide mentioned that CEOs believe more than rigor, more than management discipline, integrity, or even vision, successfully navigating an increasingly complex world will require creativity. Creativity is the cornerstone of arts education. In 2013, the Otis College of Art and Design, the Creative Economy Report, mentions that 1 in 7 jobs in Southern California is in the creative industries, and other companies supported indirectly by the business of these industries: lawyers, lumber yards, payroll services, dry cleaning companies, etc. I highly recommend this report as a resource to understand our creative industries both regionally and statewide. Both Otis and the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation collaborated on this report to explain employment, tax revenue, education, and economic trends, and they also make some projections into 2017. We know that due to the growing technology that was mentioned earlier, our entertainment leaders need computer programmers, digital media experts, and content providers to provide products in this mobile digital age. There was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal named "Computer Programming is a Trade. Let's act like it." Technology now moves so quickly that programmers must constantly retrain themselves in new frameworks. And this provides an opening for students willing to learn exactly the skills that are hot right now, as long as they're also willing to continue to learn throughout their life. These employees will need skills, whether it be digital media, digital video, web design, social media, ebooks, for example, mobile, wireless technology, online gaming. These are all products of digital media. As a foundation, we've invested in media arts programming, technical programs to support our performing arts programs, sound and lighting instruments for our schools' auditoriums. We have seen our students excel with the experience and practical training they received in our schools using these equipments. We've also funded programs or projects that offer an art project as a learning tool, where an economics class can ask students to create poster art inspired by Shepard Fairey to reflect that standard. Or a geometry class can ask a team of students to apply geometric standards in the design of a 3D miniature golf course from draft to plan to application. We feel, I'm talking from the foundation, that an arts education develops those 21st century skills that our CEOs demand: creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. We also believe that the practical training in these skills will help our students achieve that much more, so that when our Burbank students enter the employment market, they have the advantage, they can be successful, and Burbank will remain the media capital of the world. We concur that there is a need in media arts, digital media, and other career skills that will support our entertainment leaders and other local businesses. What we have seen so far has provided great promise for this community. We are grateful to have been introduced in this exploratory phase. From here, we encourage you to gather the input of our leaders and those on the ground in charge of implementation in all of Burbank's key industries. We encourage you to conduct thoughtful due diligence in identifying key stakeholders and partners, then engage those partners to set forth on a clear vision that your community can share, support, and take pride in. Once you have that clear vision and that statement that these gentlemen have referred to, then the real work begins on writing the strategic plan that will become your true north as the plan becomes a reality. Just as we've learned since 2006 with Arts for All, to be successful, the steering committee and community members it represents will need to engage those same 21st century skills to achieve success: creativity, communication, collaboration, and critical thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trina. At this point in our meeting this evening, we're going to invite anyone who wishes to address the joint meeting here of the Council and the Board of Education to please fill out a yellow card and turn it into our city clerk, and they'll be brought up here and we'll call your name. The first card speaker I have is Barbara Weintraub, and I believe if you come to the podium, you can address us through the microphone here.
Hello. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Barbara Weintraub, and I am the Executive Director of Career Development at a school called Video Symphony in Burbank. Some of you might be familiar with it. I believe the Chamber of Commerce is. We recently did some videos for you with our students. The reason I'm here tonight is I don't have like a specific reason, to be honest. I'm a Burbank citizen. One of my sons goes to John Burroughs and another to Stevenson. I'm very committed to this community. What I do is, at my school, I'm very, very hands-on, and I teach students how to get jobs. I actually get them jobs. The school that I work at, I don't know if anybody knows it, but it is like it's a technical school. It's a certificate school, but we teach people post-production and new media. So that means we teach editing and Avid and motion graphics and Pro Tools. And I'm the go-to person to get everybody work. And I am very proud to say I do a pretty good job. And I feel, as someone who oversees career development at a school, that the best thing that I can actually teach my students is to have a sustaining career. Obviously, we try to get them work when they first graduate, but I feel the best thing that I could ever do is teach them how to sustain something. And so I'm just really here today because I'm very committed to the city. I am very knowledgeable about the entertainment industry. It's the only industry I've ever worked in. I worked for a guy named Jerry Bruckheimer. Maybe some of you know of him. I was a founding executive of E! Entertainment. I think I was the 7th person hired there. And I've worked on movies, and I've had a big career in the entertainment industry. And now what I do is help people find work in it. And we've had a lot of people retrain for digital. I mean, a lot of the technical people, Technicolor people. We've had a lot of people from some of the big industries having to leave. Some of them have come to our school for retraining. So I basically am just kind of here to say I would like to offer services if any way that I can. I really understand this industry. You guys are just starting out. But I have my own company also. Besides working for Video Symphony, I have a company where I do workshops. I teach people how to use LinkedIn to its best advantage. I have a lot of different skills, and I think that possibly could be helpful. You guys are just starting out, but I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. So thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments. The next card I have is Cody Burke, and that's the last card I have as well. So if anyone else would wish to address the joint meeting this evening, please fill out a yellow card and turn it into our city clerk. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cody Burke. I am 22 years old, and I'm currently the lead video editor at a 3D software development company in Burbank. And it's really cool. Actually, your presentation, let me say, was phenomenal. It was so interesting. It was really, to see third graders implement 3D into their, sorry. I had a whole speech planned, and then when I saw your presentation, I was just like blown away by it. So I'm 22 years old, and yeah, I'm working for a software development company. And at 19 years old, I moved to Burbank, California. And at that age, I had a solid salary, I had benefits, I had a 401k. And that's because I went to the Bethlehem Area Vocational Technical School. And that was a school similar to the San Bernardino one. I majored in a class called Video and Media Arts. It was a 3-year program, and it consisted of television production, video editing, and 3D animation. Upon my senior year, I had already finished the program. So what I was able to do was go out on co-op. And co-op meant that I could leave high school and go find a job, take all my general classes in high school, and then leave and go to a job or an unpaid internship. In my case, I found an unpaid internship at a cable advertising company. And I learned some of the most valuable work experience there that I could have ever asked for. So fast forward to a year later, I'm 19 years old, and I receive a phone call from the art director of Avatar, offering me a full-time position. Now, how did he even know my name at 19 years old? At Votech, I learned more than just how to edit videos. I learned how to be mature, respectful, how to network with industry professionals, things that you don't learn in the normal school environment. So my senior year, I created a video called What is a Visual Effect? And I posted it on YouTube. About 2 weeks later, that video went viral. I had people from all over the world emailing me saying, oh, this is great, it looks awesome, you know, it's so cool to see a young kid doing something like you're doing. And then the art director of Avatar got a hold of it somehow. He was working for a company called NewTek. And he sent me an email asking me if he could fly me to Las Vegas to attend the National Association of Broadcasters event. And he wanted to basically have me demo the software up on stage, and if I passed, he would offer me a full-time position in Burbank, California. So fast forward to a year later, and here I am. So all of that before most of my friends even finished their first year of college. And the reason that I'm such a huge advocate for vocational education is because I'm a prime example of how hard work and determination throughout your 4 years, freshman through your senior year, can lead to much success without a college degree. And I also just want to say too, the presentation with the kids, like the software that we make is Lightwave 3D, and we actually implemented the file formats that 3D printers use, STL and PLY, and to see third graders using that is unbelievable. And I just wish that, you know, Burbank had something similar to that. So thank you for allowing me to speak today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. The next speaker card I have is for David Cantu, and he'll be followed by Mike Nolan. Again, if anyone else wishes to address the committee up here tonight, please fill out a yellow card and turn it into our city clerk.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, members of the council, school board. My name is David Cantu. I grew up here in Burbank, and I'm a proud Burroughs alumni, class of '99. Go Burroughs. I really enjoyed the presentation tonight, and I really endorse and support this whole program. And you know, 3 years ago, I started a video game convention right here in Burbank that showed the history of video game technology and computer technology. And 3 years ago, we started off in a tiny little room with the Boy Scouts of America, and we had like 150 kids attend this event, and they were able to see everything from the old school, like the Atari, the ColecoVision, the Sega Genesis. They were able to see all the old school technology that they didn't realize what was there because they're so used to the newer technology with the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and the PS4. This year, when we did our event, we got so much big. We had over 600 kids that attend our event this year, and we even added workshops where kids were able to learn everything from game design, computer programming to electronics in general. And after this event this year, this past week, I was invited to Rosemont Middle School in La Crescenta. One of the kids that attended the event was so inspired by what I've done, showing the history of technology, that he actually started a retro video game club at his middle school, and he has over 100 kids in his club. So the teacher and his mother invited me and some of my volunteers to come down, and we did a whole presentation about how we took apart an Atari 2600, and we showed the kids how the motherboard and how the console functioned, and it was just amazing to see these middle school kids that were so interested in wanting to learn how to repair a motherboard, wanting to learn how to put a system together to make a video game work. It just really showed me, like, all the way down to the middle school age, that these kids are really interested in learning everything about technology. And I think technology plays a really huge role in society. And just to see the progress that we have done, that we've actually started our own nonprofit organization here in Burbank, that we hope to educate kids to, everything about video game technology, from everything I just said about game design, computer programming. And I think it's very exciting to have the programs that you guys had tonight on your presentation. And I also, too, hope to be able to work with the city and the school board to be able to offer any assistance I can to be able to teach kids about this really cool technology and show them some of the old school technology. And, technology is getting bigger and more advanced every year. So I think the quicker that we can get these kids on board with these programs, the more that their skills will advance, and they'll end up having the skills needed to get the jobs that are needed today in our country. So thank you so much for your time, and really support this.
Thank you very much for your comments. Mike Nolan, and at this time, that's the last card. Anyone else wishes to speak, please turn in the yellow card with your name.
Mr. Mayor, Madam President, members of the City Council and the school board, and everybody else, I am delighted. There's one man here that I think can verify that. It'd be Coach Kemp. When I was an 11th grader at Burbank High, we had a major battle because young ladies were not allowed to sign up for auto shop. Mr. Nessel didn't approve. Then I left and went out of the country for a while and came back, and I had a couple of sisters at Burbank High, and the battle was over whether they could get jackets from their sports teams, but Title IX came in to their rescue. Now what we have, I'm going to say, is one of the beauties of Title IX. You can see it going on in this discussion tonight. And thanks to Mr. Gatto and the people that he's been working with, I'm excited. And I'll tell you why. When I went to school, if you were college prep, you had to fight to be able to take wood shop, and they'd tell you, come to summer school and you can take wood shop. That's how you're able to do it. It just wouldn't fit in your class schedule. And that's it. That's how I took wood shop at summer school. The concept or the idea that children going to school in Burbank have to go to college never made sense. It never made sense to a lot of us. Parents had a problem because the students wanted to go to college, and we started calling it the 13th grade. It was more social than anything else. This is the first time I've heard of something that's comprehensive, where how many of us have run across somebody we knew who went to 4 years of university, 3 years of law school, passed the bar, and say, but I hate being a lawyer? How could that be? But it's true. It happens. And it shouldn't. We've got opportunities here in Burbank. I'm lucky one of my brothers retired from the Warner Brothers archives. And people thought, what the heck? Well, a guy named Ted Turner came along, and they had to take all the inventory they had and barcode it so they could have access, so the people on the lot could take advantage of stuff that was already, as they call it, in the can. Before that, it was all sent off to Pacific Title Archives, off-site. It would take a couple of days to be back for some director or producer to be able to see product made by that company. So I learned a few things that way. I hope that we can get the resources directed, the locations established, and the participation to give this a real shot. Look right up here. You've got some kids right there. They're the ones turning the dials, pushing the buttons. Last night there was a big production in here. This place was broken down, redone, and those are some of the kids that did it. Everything was set up. Have the lights been working okay? What do you think? Are you blinded enough? Those 4 kids up are the ones that did it. And we can do more like this. Please, roll up your sleeves, learn all you can from Mr. Gatto, and let's get going. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Just so there's no confusion, it's Mr. Gallo. Mr. Gatto, I don't believe is here this evening, but thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the joint council and school board this evening? Okay, seeing no one, at this point, I'd like to give all the members on the council and school board and joint committee an opportunity to voice comments, reply to speakers, or comment on the presentation of Mr. Gallo and Dr. Clark. I would first yield to, want to make some comment?
Should we go one at a time, or should we start at how do you want to, where do you want to start?
Well,
How about if you call on a council member, I'll call on a board member.
okay, in the interest of equal justice here, we're going to call on one council person, and then Dr. Reynolds will call on one school board member, and we'll just go through until everyone has a chance to speak. Councilmember Brick.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon, and everyone for participating this evening. Special thanks to Mr. Gallo and Mr. Clark. I didn't know what to expect, what was going to happen, come before us tonight, and it's been pretty enlightening, no question about it. It sounds like we have a joint partnership between the council and the school board that is going to be going on for many, many years. I'm a proud graduate of Burbank High in 1970. When Mr. Nolan was talking about woodshop and printing were two of my loves and stuff like that, and I just don't know for a fact, but I don't know if they're still around today in the school district. So, and there's so much going on where not every child is going to go to college or have that opportunity to go to college. So I commend you on your, I believe it was called TET, your school, I guess you could call it, and your expertise, and I'm looking forward to a joint collaboration, like I said, from the council and the school board, and thank you to all the speakers that came forward this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brick. Dr. Reynolds?
Board Member Bunch.
Well, this is kind of in my wheelhouse because this is one of the things I've been concerned about for a long time. We do a very good job in terms of preparing our students for A through F in order to get ready to go to a university or college. Well, what I was saying was that we do a good job preparing our students for college. What we have not done quite as good a job is preparing our students for some other type of professions once they leave there. We have some programs that we run, and we do a lot of things. And we have some excellent vocational ed type programs, but some of those are dying. For instance, Auto Shop is basically a program that's slowly dying away because, quite frankly, what auto shop person wants to go and teach kids and get a credential when he can go and make a heck of a lot more money by opening up a shop? So there has to be changes like that. And as we get some of our teachers who teach vocational ed to retire, we do not have the types of programs or people to come in and take their place. So it becomes a problem for us. Our adult school is very useful in terms of how we are able to pick up some of those things that we cannot do within the school day in order to do that. business-type things we can do, and we have some good programs for that. But more needs to be done in terms of coordinating and preparing kids. And we've brought some programs there were some programs that I brought to the attention of the school district by different trade unions that have programs for students at the high schools to be able to start in these programs and become enrolled in them while they're still in high school. One of the requirements is they take algebra. And the kids can do that, and they can come out and go in a training program, and they guarantee them a job afterward once they complete their high school education. But it's very important because as we get to a situation that we have now with education going to college becoming so expensive, and it's very difficult for a lot of kids to be able to do that. The vocational education part of what we need to do is much more important than it was in the past, I think. And I'm looking forward to doing more, and especially at one point, we tried to get together with the business people within the community and set up a program where we could move kids from the high school in to do some apprenticeship-type programs there, and we need to go back to that and do that again. Because if we get those types of programs working again so that we have our students working in this community as they go through and do their high school work, then we're going to have kids that are better prepared to go into the workforce. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Board Member Bunch. Other council members wish to make some comments? Councilmember Gabeletti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Mayor Gordon and President Reynolds for bringing this forward this evening. I think it's really been eye-opening and very useful. And I was not able to make the trip out to San Bernardino, but clearly from the presentation of Mr. Gallo and Dr. Clark, you're both very inspirational individuals with both the amount of hours that you put in and the commitment and passion you have to this idea of integrated learning and applied learning. I mean, I think that message is very loud and clear. Also, the speakers, every one of you, from the WIB and from Burbank Arts for All, I think you raised some really good foundational points of view, and I think that the WIB is really in a strong leadership role of moving a concept like this forward. I wanted to thank Ms. Pritchford, since I've been involved in Burbank Arts for All and have had the pleasure of reviewing applications by teachers through the participation of the parents and the PTAs for the kind of applied learning examples that you gave. I think what that also does is provide a foundation for the $1.4 million grant that I'm happy to hear Dr. Britz has received on behalf of the school to carry this idea forward. I would just have two questions, and really they can be answered at the very end. You know, on the digital media side and the programming side, I think that's fantastic. The question I would have is, as the task force goes forward in a due diligence manner, since media changes so quickly, since programming changes, since 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we didn't even have apps. That is such a rapidly changing field. I would urge a consideration of how the educational coursework continues to evolve as rapidly as that field continues to evolve, and how it continues to refresh itself in a way that really does continue to capture the imagination of students, even starting in the 3rd grade. That's so great. And then simply, what are the next steps, Mr. Mayor and Dr. Reynolds? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabeletti. We'll try to answer those questions after everyone has a chance to speak. Dr. Reynolds.
Board Member Kemp.
Thank you, Dr. Reynolds. And first of all, I'd like to really thank our presenters this evening, Mr. Gallo and Mr. Clark, or Dr. Clark. I want to say that for Mr. Gallo, we ought to bottle what you're speaking about, let it ferment, and present it to everybody. And there's a little play on words there, because bottling has a very famous family in terms of the bottling industry. But this is something that we really need. There's no doubt about it. Mr. Brick talked about his time at Burbank High School when we had a pretty substantial vocational education program. I can recall Mr. Seymour in his machine shop. When Burbank was in the heyday of the aircraft industry, we had Lockheed, we had Manasco, we had Weber Aircraft, we had a lot of great industry giants in the aircraft field. They would come to his machine shop and say, "Send me your best guys, we'll hire them right now." So kids would walk out of that machine shop and have good paying, lifelong jobs until, of course, the aircraft industry vacated Burbank pretty much. Those were good programs. They kind of went away when we started focusing more on the academics and adding requirements for the UC system. And it seemed like every time we'd add a requirement for graduation that was anything other than vocational, then something else had to go away. And that's what happened to our program. We had tremendous programs. We had a great auto shop. Mr. Nolan referred to the auto shop with Mr. Nessel. What happened was the technology started coming in, and as things started going away, there were certain places that really focused on the technology aspect of what the industry needed. I'll use the auto shop for an example that's really important to me. Is when our auto shop started going down in importance because they didn't keep up necessarily with all the technological advances. Kids were going from Burbank High School and they would go down to Cerritos College and get in the auto program down there if they qualified. And Cerritos was producing kids that could get a job in any major auto program. They were in demand. And that's an example of what we could do here in Burbank. And I think it's really important that we start focusing again. And I don't want to take away from the importance of the academics. That's everything to us in the education business. But not all kids will benefit from a rigorous, well, I shouldn't say that, from trying to go to college. The dropout rate in college, and I think Mr. Gallo presented a little sidebar on one of the slides showing the dropout rate in the colleges in the United States, that we probably lead the world in college dropouts without getting a degree. And that says a lot about the motivation for kids and what they want to do with the rest of their life. A couple of the speakers, Mr. Burke and Mr. Cantu, they brought up examples of how kids can get interested in a certain aspect of technology, and all of a sudden their life changes and they blossom and then brings out the best that they have to offer. Kids are very creative until we get them out of the mode of creation and into something that they really don't want to do. If we can pull this off, and I think we can, we have the know-how in Burbank, I believe, with all the technology in our industries to make something like this be so viable and give kids the opportunity that they really need. Let's face it, we're changing in this world. We're changing probably more rapidly than education can really keep up with. So we need to partner with other folks in the neighborhood that are willing to step up and help kids achieve lifetime employment. And I think this is a step in the right direction. So I think I just want to say another thing about Mr. Clark. You said you spent 35 years, Dr. Clark, in the education business. Mr. Gallo wants you to work until age 75. Boy, at age 63, you're just a kid. You can do it. Stay in there. We need people like you in this business, and it's very important that people that have the passion and the desire to see this come to fruition, we want to keep you in the fold and make sure that we get it done in Burbank. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Board Member Kemp. Other council members? Vice Mayor Frutos?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm excited about this. I really am. I went out there on the tour, and I think what really excited me about this is I firsthand saw basically the learning component. The traditional way of teaching, if we cannot apply it to today's environment where a young creative mind can really apply him or herself, sometimes education becomes boring and we lose that young mind. If you look at where we're at in today's society, today's life, when I grew up, my parents always said, go to school and get a city job. And I'm very proud to be a police officer for the past 28 years. But that technology, even in the police department, has changed. We talk about the future for our city, for our children. What I like about this is that we're tying in real, practical, skilled workforce so these kids can be competitive, high quality education that's not just sitting in a classroom, but for the young people, they're going to be able to apply this. And most important, we're going to collaborate with the studios. I mean, I met with the Crane Aerospace Company, and I was kind of taken back when they were saying, you know, we're getting ready to have so many retirements, but we don't have a skilled workforce. So I, as a representative, kind of feel, wow, what can I do to keep these jobs in Burbank? And how can I really partner with the school board, with different companies here? Because you know what? Traditional jobs have been around for 30 plus years. They change. And by going with this regional workforce training, what about the people, when they're 30, 35 years old and their job is no longer here? Look at Detroit, okay? Who would ever think they would go bankrupt? And that was the, American, auto capital of the world. And they're having to retool themselves. They're having to think about how they're doing business. And so for those reasons, this is a great opportunity for us in the city of Burbank to partner up with San Bernardino, move forward with this because of the regional area that we are here for the San Fernando Valley. We could be the true leaders and really work on developing the next 2 to 3 to 4 generations, and at the same time supporting our older workforce. Because if you think about it, for our adult education, they're very proud to get that GED, that high school diploma. But realistically, what opportunity do we have them if we don't have a workforce type training component built into adult education? Because as soon as they leave, for the most part, they go into the service industry. That's not enough to pay them to buy a home and to provide for their family. So this is locked in, and I'm very excited about this, and I want to move forward with this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Frutos. Is this working?
We'll share this over here.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Frutos. I think this one's working. Dr. Reynolds.
Clerk Applebaum?
That'll get me to shut up. Well, first of all, Mr. Gallo and Dr. Clark, thank you for coming here. I was duly impressed when I went on the tour back in the end of July, and continue to be impressed with what you've continued to espouse. The message hasn't changed over the months, and you've been doing it for a while, so I think you've got it down. I think there's tremendous opportunity in Burbank for a number of reasons. One is we do have the benefit of geography. We have a large workforce that comes to this town on a daily basis to engage in plying a trade in the studios, in the entertainment business, in manufacturing, in retail, in services. We, I think, need to remember as board members what the realities of the higher education system were when they were initially set by our forefathers in this state with regards to what they envisioned was going to happen with children. The UC system was supposed to take the top 10% of kids. What about the 90% that it doesn't take? And yet we have focused and become almost obsessed with the idea that we have to make sure that kids achieve all the A through G requirements so that they can apply for a UC position of which only 1 in 10 theoretically have a spot for. Now, I'm the first to admit that the importance of higher education is not lost on me and not lost on our society. But higher education has a lot of different meanings. Higher education can be education of a practical skill, of a workforce necessity in a local region. I think that we have the opportunity here in this city to really rethink a little bit of what we need to pull this off. And I think from a school district perspective, one of the things that makes us both unique but also challenged is the physical size of our campuses. This campus is slightly under 18 acres. I was very impressed with when you took us over to the high school in San Bernardino, which I would guesstimate is probably on 40 plus acres. It's pretty hard for us to allocate space for these kinds of programs when they take a lot of space. That being said, you have at the high school, as Mr. Kemp already mentioned, an auto shop program that is languished in some ways, but a world-class facility if we allowed it to be a world-class facility. And I think part of what we need to do as a board and as a district is to recognize that the opportunities to turn some of what we have into something that we would like it to be lies with going out and identifying business partners, going out and identifying the BMWs, the Mercedes-Benz, the General Motors who want to have skilled people being able to service their cars. If we can provide that training at our high school sites, those people would have jobs that would last them a lifetime. And we could create an ancillary benefit by having a partnership with those companies to provide lifelong training for their employees. To be able to do that, though, I think that we're going to have to work together as a city and a school district to recognize that part of what we can do with the limited space that we have is to maximize and reinvigorate those things that we have. At this campus, we have an aircraft and small engine manufacturing program, which could be, again, a very visionary program if we allowed it to be. And I think that we would allow it to be by getting partners in who could really help change the direction of what we're doing to make it meaningful for what people in the workplace need today and give those lessons to our students. But I think by and large, the advantages that I see to this community, to this over the long haul, is the diversification of our workforce. I love that we're an entertainment and media-driven city, and I think that we will be for many, many years to come. But it's never good to put all your eggs in one basket. And what we had at one time was a highly industrialized community along with entertainment. And a lot of that went away. Some of it's been supplanted by retail, but I think retail can only take you so far. I think there's an opportunity here to reinvigorate our manufacturing and our industrial base in the limited areas that we have in this community and attract businesses in a big way because of where we're located, because we're next to a regional airport. We're very close to the largest general aviation airport in the country. We have proximity that is second to none in a lot of ways. I think what I'm looking for is working together with the city to identify a location for us to put together an engineering and technology institute and academy, identify the items, the areas of interest that we would like to pursue, the pathways we would like to provide. I think clearly there's artistic pathways for digital media. Some of those things could be maybe done in our classrooms. But I think some things like you have with CNC machineries, we've had trades come and say we would like to have technical training for pipe fitting. And some of those things that you are doing in your machine shops, by the way, it's the cleanest machine shop, you're right, I've ever seen in my life, and very impressive with that, but also very impressive that you're giving your kids that practical skill. And you're teaching them to do it in the right way, in a way that balances the needs of the modern technology, along with the skill set that you still need to be able to operate a 50 or 60-year-old machine. They're both part of what you're giving the kids and adults who are going through your program. So I think we need to identify the pathways. We definitely need to have a practical training, a hands-on aspect to it. I think that we are going to need to have a ancillary facility, whether it's a joint school district and city facility, whether it's a school district facility that is that the city participates with, how all of that works out. I think that's part of what the conversation initially has to be, because we are kind of landlocked on our campuses. I think if we do that and we put these in place, then the question becomes, how can we deliver the same high-level, rigorous curriculum that we give to kids now that they are going to need? They're going to need to have good communication and English skills. They're going to have good mathematics skills. They're going to need to be worldly and be able to understand the environment and the context that they exist in. Those things we can do in the high school. But we can't do some of these practical things because we don't have the space. So we need to move kids from our high school campuses over to this institute. How do we do that? Well, maybe that's a place where the city can help us. They have their own Burbank bus system. They had a system where they did transportation called Got Wheels that allowed us to move youth around the community after school. Well, what's to say we can't do that during school and put together programs that get our kids from the school site where they're learning the academics to the practical academy and back? I think that these are all things that we can work out the logistics of and deal with things that are beneficial for students, and then work with our adult education program to be able to create pathways that not only take you into the adult education world to maybe complete what you haven't done, but to create pathways which provide the continuing education that is needed to make your skills viable for decades to come. And I think that is where the school district and the city can really work wonders together, and we have the opportunity to do that. So I'm really looking forward to getting down to business and making this all happen. Thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, Board Member Applebaum. Dr. Reynolds, would you like to comment? Oh, excuse me. I missed one council member.
There you are.
I was going to say.
Councilmember Talamantes, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming here tonight and sharing your ideas. I want to address the speakers, the public speakers first. Ms. Weintraub, thank you for coming and enlightening us with what you do. That's one of the problems that I feel we have here in the city. We have to take inventory of what's already happening in our city. We have to take that inventory. When we went to Crane, we found, we didn't know that Crane existed until we got the invitation to go over to Crane and see what they did. Wow, in Burbank. Video Symphony in Burbank, and they train kids or adults as well. You know, so we have to do an inventory of what's already here in Burbank. So thank you for coming. Cody Burke, I see much success in your future at 22 years old. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Mr. Cantu, thank you for sharing your experiences of what you've done already. And it's growing, so congratulations. Mr. Nolan, thank you as always for sharing your comments with us. Now going to the speakers, Mr. Gallo and Dr. Clark, thank you very much for your presentation. It was very inspiring. I was ready to sign on. I just didn't know where I was going to sign. But I know that the mayor is very excited as well. as you are very passionate about this. He is very passionate. And I just heard our city manager, he's also very passionate about this as well, which I didn't learn till tonight. But, you know, it's, you said a few things about how we can change our community. I don't think we need to change our community. There's no need to change our community. Burbank is Burbank. Burbank's not San Bernardino. Burbank is Burbank. So I appreciate those comments. Thank you very much. Build a healthy and strong communities. I want to change that to say build a healthier and stronger community, because I feel Burbank's already healthy and strong. So I want Burbank to be healthier and stronger. Those were your words about building the healthy and strong communities. You know, I've got my own story. I'm a proud graduate of John Burroughs High School as well, my alma mater right here. My son Eric, in 3rd grade, we get a call, my wife and I get a call from the teacher. Eric's not picking things up. You think he seems a little slow. We might have to send him back to 2nd grade. Well, why don't we try this for the next couple, 3 months? Challenge him. Kind of like what you said. You said you were bored at one time. Why don't we challenge him to see, give him a little harder work, more work, and guess what? That's what it took. He engaged. He wasn't engaged because he was bored, but with a challenge that was given to him in the 2 or 3 month period, he engaged. And I'm proud to say he's a captain with the LA City Fire Department, which was just assigned to the fire chief's planning unit to work directly for the fire chief in his planning unit. So I'm very proud. I'm a very proud dad, especially since I retired from the fire department after 33 years. So that's Eric, the kid that in 3rd grade was very slow. We might have to put him back. So, you know, it's just one of those things that when you look back, I took metal shop, electronics, wood shop, and print shop when I was in junior high school. I took those 4 vocational classes when I was in junior high school. No middle school, junior high school. But once I got into high school, when I came here, I was on the college track. So I wasn't able to take any of those other classes. But we were raised to go to school. You're going to college. You're going to college. So that was their focus. But I'm very inspired as well. Your talk inspired me. I'm looking forward to the next steps. I'm looking forward to how we continue our relationship with the school district that we have for many years. There's been bumps on the road. As everybody here that's been in a few years knows that there has been bumps on the road between the city and the school district. But over the last few years, we've been working very well. And I look forward to more years of working well together. And it's just one of those things that hopefully we can, you know, Burbank is so, like it's been mentioned already, there's not too many cities in the country that can say that we have 2 railroads that run through our city, we have 2 freeways that run through our city, and an airport that is in our city. Not too many cities in the country that can say that. So we're very well positioned, and I believe this can be successful as long as we don't rush into it. Let's do it right. Let's not rush into it. Thank you for sharing your successes with us, and hopefully we can add upon those successes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Talamantes. And now Dr. Reynolds.
Vice President Tabbitt.
Good evening. Is this on? Okay. Good evening. I just need to speak louder. It was a joy and a privilege to come out to San Bernardino and see what you've done in your community, for your community and your students. And it absolutely got my wheels turning, because Burbank is one of those places that I like to think of, as you probably do San Bernardino, that we take care of our needs here. We have a call, We have a problem, we take care of it. And I see in Burbank already that we have some programs in existence that at our schools, like the young people behind that Mr. Nolan pointed out, that are in classes that serve a purpose that with the right partnership, with the right community help, could easily be developed into what you have going in San Bernardino. The stage tech, the performing arts classes, Mr. Talamantes brought up or Mr. Applebaum brought up the small engine repair here at Burroughs. There's the Academy of Finance. We have culinary art programs at our middle schools and high schools. We also have animation classes, sign language classes, areas that are already set up that don't require any additional space that with the right partnership can be moved forward. We also have, because you mentioned when we were in San Bernardino, that it's not just a K-12 program. It continues on where you're educating your teachers and your graduates after they leave. You have an adult school that's helping training these folks further, as Burbank has an adult school. So in order for these programs to work, I think you start with what we have going already, with the right partner, expand on that. It doesn't take much additional funding, it doesn't take much additional space, and the ball is already rolling. So I'm really excited, and hopefully we can form the next group or committee that's going to see this come to fruition. Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ms. Tabbitt. When Mayor Gordon came to me to describe meeting Mr. Gallo and Dr. Clark, I understand what Mr. Brick said about not understanding what he was going to see. I was totally not prepared for what I would see when I got to San Bernardino, saw what was really happening there, and heard the passion of these two gentlemen in the program that they have created. I also wasn't prepared to see the passion of the teachers who were willing to take a risk to go outside of their comfort zone and to engage in bringing these strategies and these laboratories to their classroom and to do something that was totally different, but they were willing to take that risk. I think, as all of my colleagues here have said, we're very, very fortunate to be in Burbank because we have a wonderfully collaborative community and so many opportunities and pieces in place, and I just look forward to what we're going to be able to accomplish because I believe we can do it.
Thank you. Just a few remarks. First, I definitely want to thank all the council members and board members for your input. I think it's very helpful and valuable, and thank you to all the speakers. Councilmember Gabel-Luddy asked what I feel are two very, very good questions. One of them, and please correct me if I'm not encompassing the full gist, but one of them, and I'm paraphrasing, had to do with, for example, in the media industry, media digital arts, it changes so rapidly, how can the training keep up with it? And the second one had to do with what are the next steps of implementation. And with the indulgence of the board and the council, if I could invite, we're so blessed to have them here tonight, Mr. Gallo to come back up and perhaps address that. I think he could do it much better than I could try. Mr. Gallo, do you mind?
Yeah, great question on the how do you keep up with technology, especially if it's an investment in some very expensive infrastructure like CNC machining could be. Some of those machines can go $500,000 and higher if you get the appropriate tools and things. But the real focus is on the skill acquisition, and I think that's really why I'm suggesting that as you encourage and work closer with your workforce investment boards on definition of these industry sectors, and then the demand and growth industry occupations within those sectors, that you pay particular attention to the skills, abilities, certifications, and credentials necessary to meet those demand occupations. And that's the real key. And you'll find that it's really the skill acquisition that might go beyond a particular and specific software package, but go into the how you learn software applications and the skills and abilities to actually self-teach and to embed yourself into technology yourself. You don't see a class on educating kids typically how to use their cell phones and iPads and things. The adults are the ones that need the class on the cell phones and the iPads. They just understand it intuitively because they got the skills and abilities and processing on how to mess with it and just dive in and deeply. And that's a skill in itself, and it's an acquired one. They happen to have acquired it learning just because they're not afraid to fail. You know, they're not going to break anything on a technology where the adults might think you're actually going to break something and everything. So we're kind of resistant to just diving in, embedding yourself, and becoming involved in, applied learning. Perhaps not knowing everything in the beginning. You know, we want to know what it is. We want to have a curriculum for it. We want to have an education plan and kind of a progressing plan. Every 7 minutes, you got to move on to your next standard and things. So it's really understanding, in my mind, what the specific skills and abilities are that are in demand in order to satisfy those occupations. And typically, it's not necessarily direct related experience with the latest, highest end of the technology. It's great if you can do it, and certainly there comes a point where you can do that, but you can rely on industry to provide those access to those high-end machines. If you're training and providing the students with those learning styles, the skills and abilities to even function in that environment. And then you can have the employers actually take on the specificity of working on the latest and greatest technology. So I think it's part of the strategic implementation plan and how we're doing it on that particular, for that particular question. Hope that makes sense, you guys.
Thank you very much. A second question, and again, Councilmember Gabel-Luddy can interject if she wishes to, had to do with the next steps. What steps do we need to take collectively in a community to realize these ideas?
Well, and I briefed that on my last chart, and it happened to be on, I can't emphasize enough, the shared vision, that you really define what it is you're wishing to embark on, and then involving your entire community on it. When I asked, I mentioned a facilitated formal process. I think it was Mrs. Weintraub that mentioned, don't forget to engage those of us who have been experts at this throughout the community for years. You know, absolutely right. That's the whole point. That's the definition of development of a shared vision, is involving people such as yourself. So that's a critical first step. And the next kind of concurrent activity that you really need to do is develop that and establish that dedicated leadership team. You got to find a champion. You got to find that person who can be the voice of this initiative, who is not burdened with the making a living and currently embedded into an organizational structure with duties and responsibilities in addition to implementation of this, because the collective impact strategy makes that very clear. You cannot embed this under additional duties and responsibilities within an existing structure. Yes, can you have that person report through an existing structure? Absolutely, but they got to be dedicated and solely committed to the development of these collaborations and establishment of these this shared vision and pulling a community together and defining specifically the implementation strategy and incremental deployment plan that is ultimately going to lead you to some achievable scale demonstration project using your core team / partner resources. That's really key, is that I recommend that you look at, say, the toughest areas, maybe the earliest opportunities, see what available assets that you have in the community, and perhaps you might do some demonstration programs illustrating the collaboration that can occur, perhaps through some individuals that actually have showcased you expertise that's resident in your community today. So maybe it's partnering with these organizations, building a program, perhaps jointly funding those programs to demonstrate the specific career aspirations and career fields and linkages to those employers out there, and maybe target some of those demonstration projects. And they don't all have to be embedded into one either. You can do a multi-tiered approach to things, and have several demonstration programs out there that ultimately your final version will integrate. But demonstrating those core pieces of the things that you have the most questions with. Gee, will somebody fund this stuff? How do we really get an interest? Do we really know that the job base exists? How do we know that if we do train in these areas, employers are going to actually hire? There's very easy ways to demonstrate that. You have some of those activities occurring here today. And then, again, you can focus on a more targeted, strategic, community-based investment structure on how you convince procurement authorities, philanthropic organizations to invest in your big picture, because that's what you need to build here is the collaborations. That shows that you've developed a capacity of leadership, alignment of leadership, and that's what people want to invest in. If they have and you've all embarked on this, you've all seen this happen. There's a targeted set of dollars available in a specific procurement. Well, we'll garner our resources together, we'll write a proposal exactly directed towards that specific procurement, and we'll have a bunch of competitors in it. We'll all compete against each other to try to garner those funds and everything. And we kind of rebuild an organizational structure to meet the specific funding requests that happen to come out there in the form of a procurement or RFP. I'm suggesting that you do almost the opposite, that you'll attract these kinds of specific investments through grants and things because they're able to leverage those dollars against a larger community initiative that you've defined through this collective impact strategy and through this community engagement strategy that you're about to embark on. And you can showcase to potential investors and philanthropic organizations that if you take your dollars for this specific purpose, look at what we'll do it by leveraging it against all of the alignment of organizations and activities that we're doing to see us move this big, broad-based agenda to create economic development and prosperity for our citizens. So that's my recommendation to you guys in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Councilmember Gabeletti, did that sufficiently address your questions?
I very much appreciate the broad-based approach that Mr. Gallo has now offered. It's something we can follow up. I also think, Mayor, that I wanted to ask you and Board President Reynolds, you know, and maybe Dr. Britz, because this is a uniquely Burbank initiative, what do you think the next step should be?
Thank you. I'll jump in and let Dr. Reynolds answer as well. First of all, before I respond to that, we talked about community involvement engagement. For all those folks who spoke this evening and would like to participate, just going to send this message out. We have Mr. Scott, our city manager, or our city clerk, or any of the city officials. Just hand your name and address or contact information or call the city hall and get that. By all means, when we start to put together any sort of committees or leadership, we'll reach out to you to make sure your valuable input is considered and incorporated into our efforts. So this is really valuable. As far as what I'm understanding, a lot of this is new for me as well. I think all the comments that we heard tonight have value from everybody, and I think can be incorporated. As far as my idea, from what I understand, we already have come a long way because we've engaged a number of people, school board folks. I've heard pretty much in interest and enthusiasm. Same with council members. We've reached out and we spoke to members of the community, the Chamber of Commerce, the Workforce Investment Board. We're very fortunate. Our treasurer, Debbie Kuchta, has been involved in this, and others from our city staff and from the community who have been interested and some taken the trip out, other members of school staff. I envision that the next big step for Burbank is to get that shared vision established, really define what it is we want to accomplish. And along that road of reaching the shared vision, I think Dr. Clark and Mike Gallo both have alluded to it. We need to make a tangible, in some form or other, demonstration of what can be done. I didn't understand it at first, but I'm beginning to believe that if we clearly defined and unified around a shared vision that there will be people in either funding sources of grants, state support, others. We can incorporate this at all levels, not just students in our school system, people in their careers, mid-careers. We can retain and enhance people's skill sets. We can keep the jobs here. We can reach out to veterans, large group of people coming back. We can employ and train veterans. There are people that have special needs in the state. There are housing issues. Many of these things were referenced this evening about providing social support to allow people to get those jobs. There's a very old saying, you know, you give someone, give someone a fish and feed him for a day, teach them to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. We need to teach people how to fish again. We need to teach people how to be responsive to the changes that are occurring. If we just stand still, change is not going to stop. It's going to occur. It's occurring around us. I have tremendous admiration, respect, and pride in the people of Burbank. I think this is Burbank specific. It's been alluded to by some of the speakers for many reasons. The very first is our location, our history within the entertainment industry. It goes back to the last century. But the entertainment industry, the media digital arts, has only been discussed as an initial demonstration because there's so much buy-in to it. There's so much recognition. There's so much understanding. And there's so much value to it. When you talk about creativity, we had Ms. Pitchford talk about the Arts for All. There's more to it. It's not just drawing a picture or looking at a picture. It is the mindset of creativity that is a great strength for our people here, both locally and nationally. So we need to build on that. So the purpose for Burbank and the first step in this journey, I think, is to achieve some sort of demonstration model that works, that incorporates the various elements that we've heard. Partnering with the Workforce Investment Board, they voted about a week ago to give support to these efforts, working closely with the school board, working closely with various nonprofits in our community. We've had some tentative conversations with the various studios surrounding us. They are very interested. This is a win-win situation. This isn't for one particular group or one particular industry or job. This is going to spread. And once we can get it rolling, I believe we can diversify it. It is a model upon which we can build, whether it's aerospace, media, any number of fields. We talked about aviation, construction, and model. We talked about automotive. All of those things are great ideas. And part of the step is identifying and forming a community committee where we can have as many people involved as possible to incorporate their input and have some clearly targeted goals and also implement the implementation plans or strategic plans, identifying, I think it was Councilman Talamantes mentioned, identifying what's needed. We don't want to train people for jobs that aren't here. We don't want to invest our energy for things that won't be needed or things that be obsolete. We want to be in the cutting edge, and we don't just want average training. We want the very best. We want to set the standard. And I mean, I could go on all night, I don't want to, but I hope that addresses some of the questions about what I envision for Burbank. And that vision is daily taking shape. And I think within a relatively short time, we will obtain a collective community vision of what we want to achieve. And each day we're getting more input and redefining it. And not to plug anything, but we do have a State of the City coming up. And hopefully I'll have even more information to share with the entire community and expose this. This meeting alone will go out. I understand it's being taped. People will be able to see it. And anyone who wishes to participate, anyone who wishes to give input, thank you so much, Video Symphony, for coming down and sharing. We have very talented, skilled people. We have generations of aerospace in this country, in this city. We have generations of entertainment. We have generations of all sorts of talents in this city. We have the medical arts and field that we haven't even touched upon tonight. It is huge. And if we are courageous enough, has been alluded to take those risks and steps necessary today, for generations from here, people will be proud of what we've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Gordon. I think on a practical level, this was our very first step, because before this evening, we couldn't even discuss this as collective bodies until we actually agendized this and brought it forward. So this was the first step in order to have that conversation. And I can't emphasize enough also, as Mayor Gordon did, the amount of community input we really do want to see, and the formation of a steering committee. Dr. Britz, Mr. Scott, would you like to offer any additional thoughts on the next steps?
You know, sorry about that. Only the fact that I think that, as it was already communicated, set that vision, make specifics, and bring together a leadership team to really start rolling it out. And I think we need to identify who will be on that leadership team as well, because I think that will be key.
I'm tempted at this hour to say ditto.
Okay, thank you for those insightful remarks, Dr. Britz and our city manager. Do any council members or board members have any final comments they'd wish to make? Councilmember Talamantes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add that, if we want to look region-wide to be more inclusive, you've got a couple of Valley Economic Alliance is very proactive in the Valley, which we are members of, the city of Burbank. You also have the LAEDC, LA County Economic Development Corporation. It's been a very big player in this region. I believe, like it's mentioned by Mr. Gallo earlier in his presentation, the broader participation, the greater the effort, which we might be able to reach out to get more monies, more grants availability, because we're working with partnerships with not only in the community, but out in the region as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I actually agree. One of the things that we need to do, we don't need to artificially confine this. It is going to be a broadcast net for anyone who wishes to partner with us, anyone who wants to bring in information. It is truly going to be community-based. And once we identify and define a community committee that's defined who's on it, what their roles are, what's going to be done targeted, we certainly can give direction on reaching out as broad as the community wishes to go. But the regional concept is important, but we're not discussing it at length this evening, but there are absolutely certain characteristics of Burbank, inherent in Burbank, with both its location, its transit access, its socioeconomic base of people who would benefit from these things, and the surrounding region. And we haven't even touched upon it in detail, but our transit-centric location with airport and rail lines is growing. We're having freeway improvements, we're having rails discussion. There possibly will be, at some point in the future, a light rail connection coming through our city. There's so many things that will happen that will make this truly a central place, an ideal location to establish what Gary Olson referred to as an advanced technical training hub. And I am just so enthusiastic, and I can't thank all the members here tonight, the public, for speaking in support of this. Thank you. Last call for other comments. Okay, then we will adjourn the joint meeting of the council meeting and the city school board meeting, and the council will re-adjourn tomorrow for its regular meeting on October 14th at City Council Chambers. Thank you and good night.